Here are 3 hours of forbidden places on Earth, where human footsteps are barred, dangers linger unseen, and mysteries remain sealed in silence. Just 21 miles off the coast of São Paulo, Brazil, lies Ilha da Queimada Grande. A small patch of green rising from the Atlantic, it looks unremarkable from a distance. Yet no civilian is permitted to set foot there. The reason slithers through its undergrowth. Thousands of golden lancehead vipers, one of the deadliest snakes on Earth. Their venom can melt human flesh. But what researchers discovered about their evolution is stranger still. The island is less than half a square mile in size, yet within its tangled vegetation lives a population density of snakes, unlike anywhere else on Earth. Estimates suggest that for every square meter of ground, a golden lancehead may be lurking. The species, Bothrops insularis, exists nowhere else in the world. Isolated for millennia, they evolved from mainland relatives into a venom stronger, faster acting, and more destructive than their ancestors. Local fishermen tell stories of birds falling lifeless from the sky after only a single strike, their hearts stopping before they hit the ground. The evolutionary reason lies in the island's geography. Thousands of years ago, rising seas cut Queimada Grande off from the mainland. Trapped on their isolated outcrop, the snakes lost access to mammals and instead adapted to hunting migratory birds that paused to rest among the trees. A snake that could strike quickly and deliver instant fatality had the advantage. For if a bird managed to fly even a few meters after being bitten, it could vanish over open water. Natural selection favored those with the deadliest venom, and generation after generation, the toxin grew more potent. Today, a single bite from a golden lancehead can kill a human in under an hour, causing organ failure and tissue necrosis. The Brazilian government has declared the island permanently off-limits to civilians. The Navy patrols the waters, warning away the curious. Only a handful of researchers, granted rare permits, have ever stepped onto its rocky shores. They arrive in full protective gear, moving cautiously, their boots crunching through leaf litter where camouflaged coils may lie in wait. Even then, accidents have nearly occurred. One herpetologist later described the unsettling silence between his team members, the awareness that every step carried risk, and the eerie feeling of eyes unblinking, lidless watching from the undergrowth. But the snakes are not the only mystery. Scattered across the island are the remains of a disused lighthouse, built in 1909. For decades it was manned by keepers and their families, until local legend claims tragedy struck. Stories circulate of a keeper and his wife who were bitten and never returned to shore. The Brazilian Navy automated the lighthouse in the 1920s, sealing off its doors, leaving only weather-worn stone to stand guard over the island. Some say that within its walls lie further traces of human habitation, but none dare explore them. Golden lanceheads themselves are now critically endangered, despite their abundance in their tiny domain. Restricted to a single island, their numbers are vulnerable to disease, environmental change, or even poaching. Smugglers have been caught attempting to traffic the snakes on the black market, where each specimen can fetch tens of thousands of dollars for collectors or laboratories. Yet transporting one alive is perilous, and stories circulate of traffickers meeting grim ends before ever reaching the mainland. What fascinates scientists most, however, is the venom itself. Within its lethality lies potential medicine. Studies show it contains compounds capable of thinning blood and lowering pressure, which could one day help treat heart disease. The paradox is stark. What makes the lancehead's bite so deadly might also save human lives, yet harvesting that potential requires stepping into the most dangerous ecosystem on Earth, where every branch and shadow might conceal a strike. From a distance, Queimada Grande remains deceptively peaceful. Birds circle above, waves break gently on rocky shores, and the vegetation sways in the Atlantic wind. But beneath that calm lies a lethal truth, an island where evolution sharpened survival into a weapon. For the snakes, it is paradise. For humans, it is exile. And yet, satellite surveys show something else, a network of small, overgrown clearings hidden among the trees. Some appear to follow straight lines, unnatural in their geometry. Researchers debate whether these are remnants of old human paths, or something more recent. If true, it would mean someone has set foot where no one should. The snakes wait in silence, their golden scales glinting faintly in patches of filtered sunlight. The island is forbidden, but curiosity never fully sleeps. On April 26, 1986, Reactor 4 at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant exploded, releasing radiation across Europe. The nearby city of Pripyat was evacuated within 36 hours, leaving behind children's toys, schoolbooks, and wedding rings still sitting on kitchen tables. Decades later, the radiation lingers. Wolves roam freely, trees grow through apartment blocks, and Geiger counters still click in warning. Yet some who return whisper of stranger phenomena. When the reactor's graphite core caught fire, it released an estimated 400 times more radiation than the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. Cesium-137, iodine-131, and strontium-90 drifted on the wind, contaminating soil and rivers as far away as Scandinavia. The so-called exclusion zone now covers 10 square miles, sealed off from permanent human habitation. At its center lies Pripyat, a city built in 1970 to house workers and their families. On the morning of the evacuation, 49 residents boarded buses, told it would be for 3 days. They never returned. Walking through Pripyat today feels like entering a photograph that never aged. The Ferris wheel, built for a May Day celebration that never came, still towers over the amusement park. Schoolrooms lie silent, chalk still marking blackboards. Dolls and gas masks are scattered together on classroom floors, symbols of innocence and catastrophe entangled. The air is quiet, but a Geiger counter betrays the truth with its steady clicking. Even now, hotspots measure radiation dozens of times above safe levels. Yet life has found a way back. In the Red Forest, one of the most contaminated areas, pine trees grew with twisted, stunted forms. But decades later, birch, oak, and willow spread through the clearings, creating new ecosystems. Wolves, lynx, and wild boar roam streets where children once played. Brown bears and Przewalski's horses, a species once nearly extinct, have returned in numbers. Scientists debate whether radiation's genetic effects are outweighed by the absence of humans. Nature, it seems, can thrive even in silence. But not all who enter the zone speak only of animals and ruins. Some researchers describe electrical interference near the reactor site Geiger, counters spiking erratically, instruments failing without cause. In abandoned buildings, explorers report hearing faint voices through static-laced radios, even when disconnected from power. Ukrainian officials attribute such stories to stress and suggestion, the mind filling silence with echoes. Yet the accounts persist. One story often repeated among liquidators, the cleanup workers who entered in 1986, tells of black birds seen circling the reactor in the days before the explosion. Described as massive, winged shapes with piercing red eyes, they became known in folklore as harbingers of disaster. While historians dismiss them as post-disaster myth-making, the image of giant birds circling a doomed reactor lingers in local memory. Radiation, too, plays tricks with time. Items left behind decay unevenly. Paper fades, yet metal rusts faster. In one apartment block, calendars remain fixed on April 1986, their pages oddly preserved while nearby walls crumble. Researchers studying building materials found that certain isotopes embedded themselves in paint and plaster, effectively halting mold and decay. Entire rooms appear locked in stasis, preserved by contamination itself. Pripyat also hides a darker secret underground. Beneath Reactor 4 lies the Elephant's Foot, a mass of solidified corium, a mixture of melted nuclear fuel, concrete, and sand. Formed in the days after the explosion, it is so radioactive that standing near it for more than a few minutes in 1986 would have meant certain death. Today, levels have dropped, but they remain lethal with prolonged exposure. Photographs taken by remote cameras reveal a texture like wrinkled stone, but with a faint glassy sheen. Some say it still shifts slowly, like cooling lava, inching deeper into the ground. For years, scavengers have risked entry to steel, contaminated metal, copper wiring, and even soil for sale on black markets. Authorities patrol, but rumors persist of stolen objects carrying a curse machines malfunctioning, trucks overturning, handlers falling ill with unexplained fevers. Radiation provides one explanation. Superstition provides another. Chernobyl's exclusion zone stands as a paradox, both a monument to human error and a sanctuary reclaimed by nature. For some, it is proof of resilience, a vision of how the Earth continues without us. For others, it is a reminder of how fragile safety truly island the zone remains sealed, the warning signs still nailed to its perimeter fences. And yet, deep within the forests, survey drones occasionally capture faint lights, small moving glows drifting above the treetops. Fireflies, perhaps, or instrumentation errors. But some insist they are something stranger, remnants of energy that linger, waiting in silence. In March 2011, a 9.0 magnitude earthquake triggered a tsunami that crippled the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant. Entire towns were emptied, leaving clocks frozen at the moment power failed. Radiation levels fluctuate, sometimes spiking unpredictably. Residents who briefly return report homes preserved in uncanny stillness, bicycles still chained to fences, calendars still hanging on walls. But radiation isn't the only hazard. The earthquake struck at 2:46 p.m. on March 11th, shaking Japan's northeast coast for 6 minutes. Offshore, the seafloor lurched upward, displacing billions of tons of water. Within an hour, a wall of ocean as high as 40 meters slammed into the shoreline. Concrete seawalls crumbled, entire villages vanished. At Fukushima Daiichi, the reactors automatically shut down, but the tsunami flooded backup generators, silencing the pumps meant to cool the cores. Within days, 3 reactors melted down. Hydrogen explosions tore through their outer buildings, releasing radioactive plumes across the countryside. The government ordered more than 150 residents to evacuate. Buses and trains carried families away in silence, their pets left behind, their possessions abandoned. For many, the expectation was temporary displacement weeks, perhaps months. But as radiation maps spread across newspapers and television screens, it became clear entire towns had been erased, not by the wave, but by contamination. Walking today through Nami or Futaba, once thriving communities near the plant, is to step into a suspended moment. Convenience stores still display shelves of bottled drinks long expired. Pachinko parlors remain lit by dust-dulled machines. In classrooms, half-written chalk sentences cling to blackboards as if teachers might return any minute. The stillness is unsettling because it feels recent, yet years have passed. Nature has begun to seep back, grass pushing through asphalt, wild boar rooting in supermarket aisles, and bears wandering through the streets where traffic once flowed. Radiation is measured in becquerels and sieverts, units familiar to nuclear engineers but abstract to most. What residents know is simpler. Geiger counters brought on return visits sometimes stay calm, then suddenly crackle with warning. Cesium isotopes lodge unevenly in soil and water. One field may measure safe, the next dangerously high. This unpredictability creates a second exile, not just from homes, but from certainty itself. Yet radiation is not the only risk. The tsunami left behind mountains of debris, splintered homes, upturned cars, and chemicals from shattered factories. In the early years, rain carried contaminants into rivers, forming stagnant pools too toxic for animals. Salt water corroded pipes and bridges. Even structures untouched by the wave now sag and crumble from neglect. Collapsing roofs and unstable walls make exploration hazardous, even for the curious few who venture back. There are also the animals that survived. Cows, once kept in barns, roamed free until they grew feral. Dogs formed packs. Horses wandered. Fields gone wild. Farmers who returned illegally to feed them became known as guardians of the forgotten, quietly risking exposure so their animals would not starve. For some, the act was resistance, refusing to let life vanish entirely from the land they once called home. But the strangest reports are harder to quantify. Visitors speak of eerie silences broken by phantom sounds, the hum of machinery, the faint ring of telephones that no longer connect. A few report seeing flickers of light within abandoned homes, as if bulbs were briefly alive despite severed power lines. Engineers attribute such stories to imagination, to stress in a place where memory and danger overlap. Yet, the accounts echo across years. The Fukushima disaster forced Japan to confront its reliance on nuclear energy. Dozens of plants were shut down, inspections tightened, policies rewritten. Yet for those who lived there, the scars are personal. Family photos left to fade, ancestral graves left untended, a sense of place turned uninhabitable. Today, some zones have reopened, declared safe by decontamination teams. Families return, but not all stay. Schools reopen with a fraction of their former students. Children wear radiation monitors clipped to their collars. Behind every cautious smile lingers the question: what is left in the soil, in the air, in the unseen? From above, the ghost towns look whole houses in neat rows, roads leading toward the sea. But step inside, and you feel time halted at 2011, a moment stretched into eternity. The danger is invisible, the silence heavier than ruins, and still, deep within Fukushima Daiichi itself, reactors remain unstable. Vast tanks store contaminated water, more than 1 million tons awaiting treatment or release. Engineers monitor them constantly, but each year brings new leaks, new uncertainties. The evacuation was an ending, but also a beginning, one whose final chapter has yet to be written. Deep in the Bay of Bengal, the Sentinelese people have lived untouched for tens of thousands of years. Outsiders are forbidden to land, not only to protect the tribe, but also to prevent them from catching diseases they have no immunity against. Indian authorities enforce a buffer zone. But even at a distance, ships have seen figures emerge from the tree line with bows drawn. Yet, there are reports of earlier contacts that ended far more mysteriously. The island itself is only about 23 square miles, dense with mangrove forest and ringed by shallow reefs. From the air, it looks like paradise, emerald green, fringed with white sand, surrounded by the turquoise waters of the Andaman Sea. But for centuries, it has been a place of absolute separation. The Sentinelese, numbering perhaps only a few hundred, have resisted every attempt at contact. Their language remains unknown, their culture unrecorded, their origins traced only through genetics that suggest they have lived there for more than 30 years, a lineage unbroken since the last ice age. Colonial records describe some of the earliest encounters. In 1867, a British ship, the Nineveh, was wrecked on Sentinel Reefs. Survivors clambered onto the beach, only to find themselves surrounded by islanders armed with arrows and spears. They held the castaways for days before the Royal Navy arrived to rescue them. In the 1890s, the British administrator Maurice Vidal Portman attempted to establish contact, kidnapping several Sentinelese and taking them to Port Blair. Adults soon sickened and died, likely from introduced diseases, and the frightened children were returned to the island with gifts. the lesson was stark. Their isolation was their shield. Even in the 20th century, the island remained impenetrable. In 1974, a documentary crew, accompanied by Indian anthropologists, attempted to approach. They left coconuts and gifts on the sand. At first, the Sentinelese retreated, watching from the trees. Then arrows rained down. One struck the documentary director in the thigh. The expedition ended immediately. The Indian government declared the island off-limits in 1956, establishing a buffer zone of 3 nautical miles. Helicopters flying overhead are often met with arrows. After the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami, reconnaissance flights circled to check on the tribe. To the astonishment of observers, Sentinelese men emerged from the forest, bows raised, signaling defiantly that they had survived even the great wave that devastated so many coastlines. Their resilience, honed over millennia, endured. Yet not all encounters ended with defiance alone. Fishermen who strayed too close in 2006 were killed when their boat drifted ashore. The Indian Coast Guard, attempting recovery, was driven off by arrows before helicopters could even land. In 2018, an American missionary attempted to make contact, defying laws and warnings. He was killed within hours of setting foot on the beach. His body was never retrieved. What is striking is not only their hostility to outsiders, but their absolute independence. They have no known use of metal tools, no wheels, no written language, yet they have thrived in isolation longer than most civilizations have even existed. Satellite images show small huts, fishing canoes, and clearings, but little else. They live by hunting, fishing, and gathering coconuts, untouched by the technologies that dominate the modern world. Anthropologists suggest that their hostility is less aggression than defense. Each prior contact brought death through disease, abduction, or violence. To them, outsiders represent extinction. Protecting their borders is not a choice but a necessity. The Indian government's policy now is simple. Leave them entirely alone. Any violation risks not only the lives of outsiders but also the fragile survival of the tribe itself. Yet questions remain. Where did their ancestors come from? How have they survived so long without agriculture? And what knowledge, passed down orally for countless generations, might they hold about ancient migrations, about the sea, about storms and survival? The answers remain sealed within their community, carried in a language no outsider understands. The shoreline of North Sentinel remains a boundary few dare to cross. On calm days, fishing boats linger at a distance, watching figures move among the trees. At night, fires flicker faintly through the canopy, a reminder that life continues there, in rhythms older than history. The world presses closer every year, shipping lanes expand, satellites watch from above, and climate change threatens even isolated islands. But for now, the Sentinelese endure, as they always have, unseen, unheard, and untouchable. And yet, archaeologists note strange parallels between the Sentinelese and other island tribes once thought uncontactable, who later revealed memories of shipwrecks, storms, and even outsiders arriving long before official records. If true, it raises an unsettling possibility. The Sentinelese may remember far more of us than we will ever know of them. Beneath the quiet town of Centralia, Pennsylvania, a fire has been burning since 1962. It started in an abandoned coal seam and never stopped. Today, smoke seeps from the ground. Streets buckle and sudden sinkholes belch toxic gas. Nearly every resident has left, but the fire is expected to burn for another 250 years. And yet, surveyors found something unusual within the poisoned air. Centralia was once a thriving mining town of about 200 people. Its streets were lined with row houses, churches, and small businesses. Beneath the town, labyrinths of coal seams crisscrossed the earth, rich fuel that had powered generations. But in May 1962, a fire was set to burn trash in a strip mine pit on the edge of town. What seemed like routine disposal spread into hidden tunnels below. Once coal ignites underground, it is nearly impossible to stop. The fire moved silently, devouring seams in every direction, a furnace sealed beneath the earth. At first, residents barely noticed. A faint smoke here, a whiff of sulfur there. But by the late 1970s, the signs grew harder to ignore. Yards grew warm underfoot, even in winter. Cracks opened in asphalt, exhaling steam. In 1981, a 12-year-old boy fell into a sudden sinkhole that opened beneath his backyard, a pit 150 feet deep, belching carbon monoxide. He was pulled to safety, but the town's fate was sealed. The government declared Centralia unsafe, buying out most properties and relocating families. By the 1990s, the post office revoked its zip code. Houses were demolished, leaving only streets that lead to emptiness. A few holdouts refused to leave, clinging to their homes even as officials cut utilities and posted warning signs. Today, fewer than a dozen residents remain, scattered across an almost vanished town. The fire itself is vast. Thermal imaging shows it stretching for miles, shifting unpredictably as coal veins collapse or ignite. Temperatures underground can exceed 900 degrees Fahrenheit. Some seams are thought to burn as deep as 300 feet below the surface. Toxic gases seep into basements and wells, making the air dangerous to breathe. Engineers estimate the fire could last another 2 to 3 centuries, consuming what coal remains in its path. And yet, the poisoned landscape has taken on a strange life of its own. Trees grow twisted, their trunks scorched at the roots by invisible heat. Patches of earth steam even under snowfall, creating ghostly plumes that rise in silence. Wildflowers bloom early in the warm soil, creating sudden flashes of color against blackened ground. It is a place where the normal rhythm of seasons seems subtly altered. The most haunting remnant is the abandoned stretch of Route 61, known as the Graffiti Highway. Closed when cracks and sinkholes made it impassable, it became a canvas for visitors who spray-painted names, murals, and cryptic messages on its buckled asphalt. Now reclaimed by the state and covered with dirt, fragments remain a scar across the landscape. Half buried, half erased, surveyors monitoring the fire often record anomalies. Gas readings fluctuate wildly, spiking far beyond predictions. Instruments sometimes fail altogether, scrambled by the intense heat. In one survey, air samples revealed trace compounds not typically associated with burning coal chemicals whose origin remains uncertain. Officials dismissed the findings as contamination from nearby industries, but the question lingered. What else smoulders beneath Centralia's ground? Legends have grown in the absence of answers. Some compare the fire to a modern vision of hell, an underworld burning endlessly just below the surface. Others whisper about the silence of demolished streets, where mailboxes stand with no houses, and driveways lead to fields of weeds. Even in daylight, the town feels suspended, half erased by fire, half preserved by memory. Centralia is more than an abandoned place. It is a reminder of how easily human landscapes can be undone, how a single spark can devour a town not in flames above, but in heat hidden below. The fire burns on, unseen but unrelenting, turning soil toxic, air unstable, and streets unsafe. And yet, recent surveys showed something unsettling: areas of warmth and gas release in places previously thought untouched by the fire, well beyond the mapped perimeter. The underground blaze may be moving in directions no model predicted. If true, the town's story is not just a closed chapter, but a continuing one, spreading quietly through the dark earth. Floating in the Venetian lagoon is a small, forbidding island. Once a quarantine station for plague victims, later an asylum, Poveglia is now permanently closed to the public. Locals refuse to go near it, claiming the soil itself is mixed with human ash. Italian authorities list it as off-limits, citing safety concerns, but divers who dared approach its crumbling docks returned with a different story. The island is deceptively small, barely 17 acres, yet its reputation is vast. For centuries, Poveglia absorbed the fears of Europe's deadliest outbreaks. In the late 1500s, when plague swept through Venice, ships entering the lagoon were ordered to stop here. Passengers were inspected, and the sick were offloaded, confined to the island until they died. Contemporary accounts suggest that tens of thousands perished on its shores. Their bodies were burned in vast pyres, the smoke drifting toward the city like a grim reminder of contagion. Soil tests today reveal high concentrations of ash and bone fragments, evidence that centuries of mass cremations changed even the island's earth. By the 18th century, Poveglia had become a place Venetians spoke of only in whispers. Superstitions warned that the ground itself was cursed. When Napoleon briefly occupied Venice in the early 1800s, he repurposed the island as a weapons depot. Cannons were stationed there, but soldiers complained of unease, of noises at night, of figures glimpsed among the ruined chapels. Napoleon abandoned the site after only a few years. Its darkest chapter began in 1922, when a psychiatric hospital opened on Poveglia. Records are sparse, but locals recall ferries arriving with patients, and rumors spread of treatments that veered into cruelty. Old photographs show crumbling wards with barred windows and rusting beds. By the mid-20th century, the facility had closed, its buildings left to collapse into ivy and rot. Official documents cite disrepair. Unofficial accounts speak of patients who described hearing screams where none should be, or shadows moving across the walls. When the asylum shuttered in the 1960s, the island was abandoned for good. The Italian government barred development, declaring the buildings unsafe. To this day, Poveglia is listed as restricted property. From the water, travelers see only the leaning bell tower, its silhouette rising over trees. The structure is so unstable that authorities warn it could collapse at any time. Yet it remains standing, a marker for sailors steering clear. Fishermen rarely cast nets near Poveglia, not out of fear of collapse, but because they believe the waters are cursed. Local tales speak of boats snagging on bones or of shadows surfacing beneath their hulls. Divers who have ventured close report thick layers of ash still visible beneath shallow sand and unusual currents tugging near the docks. One team claimed their compasses spun erratically as they circled the island, though no official explanation was given. Archaeologists confirm the grim reality. At least 160 people are thought to have died on Poveglia across centuries of plague quarantines. Human remains are so abundant that soil cores bring up fragments of charred bone. The very land is layered with mortality. It is not legend that the soil is mixed with ash. It is fact. Yet beyond the history lies something more difficult to explain. Locals insist that Poveglia has a presence. Water taxi pilots in Venice refuse to approach it, claiming the island itself feels wrong, as if sound carries strangely or the air thickens near its shore. In 2014, the government attempted to auction a lease for redevelopment. Investors expressed interest, but within months, the plans collapsed. Nothing was built, and the island returned to silence. Seen from afar, Poveglia looks no different from any other islet in the lagoon. Birds nest in its crumbling walls. The water laps quietly against stone. Yet history is not erased so easily. Beneath the surface, thousands of lives ended violently, and centuries of fear took root. Whether it is the weight of that history or something else entirely, few dare to find out. In Virginia's Blue Ridge Mountains lies Mount Weather, a US government facility so secret that its existence was denied for decades. Built as a Cold War shelter, it is said to contain miles of tunnels, stocked for continuity of government. in the event of nuclear war. But leaked accounts from former staff describe areas even officials are not allowed to enter. The history of Mount Weather begins in the 1950s, when the threat of nuclear conflict drove the United States to create hidden sanctuaries. Located near Berryville, Virginia, the facility was carved into granite bedrock, its entrance disguised by nondescript government buildings. Officially, it was labeled the Mount Weather Emergency Operations Center. Unofficially, it became known as the place where the government would retreat if the unthinkable ever happened. Inside, according to declassified documents, are entire underground cities, self-sufficient chambers with dormitories, cafeterias, and even a hospital. Estimates suggest the complex spans at least 600 square feet, some of it stretching hundreds of feet below ground. Power plants, water reservoirs, and air filtration systems were installed to keep occupants alive for months. Maps hint at miles of tunnels radiating outwards, connecting to hidden entrances scattered through the Blue Ridge foothills. The facility remained a rumor until December 1, 1974, when a plane carrying 92 people crashed into the mountain during bad weather. Rescue efforts exposed glimpses of the complex to reporters, who were stunned by the scale of what they saw. For the first time, the existence of Mount Weather entered the public record. Yet even then, details remained closely guarded. What is known is that Mount Weather forms part of continuity of government planning. In the event of nuclear war, senior officials, including the President and Cabinet, would be evacuated there. The site is managed by the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, but military personnel also maintain a presence. During the September 11th attacks in 2001, reports suggest congressional leaders were transported to Mount Weather for safety, demonstrating that its purpose extends far beyond Cold War fears. And yet, even within government circles, rumors persist of areas off limits. Former employees have described sealed tunnels, vast doors leading to unexplained chambers, and entire levels where only select personnel were permitted. Some accounts speak of storage vaults holding classified archives, records, technologies, or even materials considered too sensitive for disclosure. These claims remain unverified, but the consistency of the testimonies adds to the unease. Geologists studying the region note that the granite foundation of Mount Weather provides extraordinary stability against nuclear blasts and seismic activity. Yet anomalies appear in survey data's subsurface structures far larger than the known footprint. Whether these are abandoned expansions, military caverns, or simply errors in imaging, no official explanation has ever been provided. The secrecy breeds speculation. Some researchers believe Mount Weather houses not just government continuity plans, but also data reserves, vast digital archives meant to preserve U.S. infrastructure, financial systems, and records in case the outside world collapses. Others suggest that experiments in communications, electromagnetic defense, or even psychological operations may have been conducted in its depths. The truth is buried in layers of classification that may never be opened. Local residents occasionally report unusual activity. Convoys of unmarked trucks rumble through at night. Helicopters circle the mountains. Lights extinguished, moving in silence. Hikers who stray too close encounter fences, sensors, and warning signs that leave no doubt. Trespassing is forbidden, and the response will be immediate. Those who have tested the boundary describe the unnerving sense of being watched long before they reach the perimeter. Today, satellite imagery shows the surface facilities clearly: office buildings, antennas, and secure fences. But what lies beneath remains hidden. The entrance tunnels are vast enough to swallow entire vehicles, their reinforced blast doors visible only in rare photographs. Beyond them, the mountain conceals whatever purpose the government deems too dangerous or too essential for the outside world to see. What makes Mount Weather so unsettling is not simply what is known, but what is withheld. It is a place built for survival, yet surrounded by silence. The deeper tunnels, the sealed chambers, The stories of staff forbidden from certain levels all point to something larger than continuity planning alone. And if one day the mountain's doors are sealed from within, we may never know what else it was built to contain. 8. Area 51, the airfield without a name. Officially, it does not exist. The desert airstrip known as Area 51 is a place of radar silence and restricted skies. The perimeter is patrolled. The fences bristle with cameras, and warning signs authorize deadly force. Declassified files reveal it as a testing ground for advanced aircraft, yet satellite images show structures never explained in any release. The facility sits within the Nevada Test and Training Range, north of Las Vegas, on the dry expanse of Groom Lake. Its origins trace back to the 1950s, when the CIA needed a remote site to test the U-2 spy plane, an aircraft designed to fly higher than Soviet missiles could reach. Groom Lake's salt flats offered the perfect runway, vast, level, and far from prying eyes. Workers were flown in on unmarked aircraft, supplies delivered in convoys under cover of darkness. The name Area 51 came from old atomic testing maps, where the land was marked but left blank. Through the 1960s and 70s, new projects unfolded here. The SR-71 Blackbird, capable of flying at Mach 3, first proved its abilities in Groom Lake skies. Later, stealth technologies were tested, producing aircraft like the F-117 Nighthawk. Documents declassified in 2013 confirmed these programs, ending decades of speculation. But even in those admissions, details were carefully limited, and certain activities remained redacted. The secrecy is not just bureaucratic, it is enforced physically. The airspace above Area 51 is one of the most restricted in the world, known as R4808N. Pilots are warned that even accidental entry will trigger interception. On the ground, the perimeter stretches for miles, monitored by sensors buried beneath the sand. White pickup trucks, nicknamed Camo Dudes by enthusiasts, patrol constantly. Trespassers who test the boundary are met quickly, escorted away or arrested before they can approach the inner fences. Satellite imagery provides the only real glimpse of what lies inside. From above, long runways stretch across Groom Lake's dried surface. Hangars large enough to conceal entire aircraft dot the landscape. Over the years, new structures have appeared: vast hangars, strange domed buildings, and even a runway extension longer than any commercial strip in the United States. Official releases never mention them. Their purpose remains classified. Whispers from former employees offer fragments of insight. Some speak of night flights, aircraft with shapes unlike anything in service. Others recall briefings that required blindfolds, restricting knowledge to a single room or corridor. The culture of secrecy was so strict that even workers inside the base knew little beyond their assigned tasks. One former engineer described it as a place where everyone saw only one piece of the puzzle. Area 51's legend, however, extends beyond aviation. Since the late 1940s, it has been tied in public imagination to UFOs. The Roswell incident in 1947, though officially explained as a weather balloon, seeded decades of speculation. When strange lights appeared in Nevada skies, test flights of classified aircraft, they fueled rumors of extraterrestrial technology. Some conspiracy theories suggest crashed objects were brought here, hidden in hangars beneath the desert Sunday the US. Government has never confirmed such claims, but the ambiguity has only deepened fascination. In 2019, the Storm Area 51 internet event brought global attention once again. Millions signed up online to see them aliens. On the day itself, only a few thousand arrived, most staying outside the perimeter. The fences held, the warning signs remained, and the secrets stayed buried. Yet the event showed how powerfully the site captures imagination, a symbol of both military secrecy and hidden possibility. What is certain is that Area 51 continues to operate. Satellite photos as recent as 2023, show construction of new runways and massive hangars. Analysts speculate about next-generation aircraft, hypersonic drones, advanced stealth bombers, or even experimental propulsion systems. Official channels remain silent. Standing at the desert's edge, the silence feels absolute. No engine noise, no visible guards, only the heat shimmering above the sand. Yet, sensors detect every movement, cameras track every step. It is a place where the unseen is always watching, and in the deepest shadows of Groom Lake, past the hangars and radar domes, structures remain that no declassified document has ever acknowledged. Their purpose is unlisted, their contents unknown. The airfield without a name still guards its silence. In Pyongyang, within the Workers' Party headquarters, lies an office known only as Room 39. Established in the 1970s, it is said to control secret slush funds, counterfeit operations, and even overseas accounts worth billions. Defectors describe it as the financial lifeblood of the regime. But what outsiders cannot confirm is who or what really moves behind its doors. The official name is the Central Committee Bureau 39, but in North Korea it is spoken of cautiously, if at all. Western intelligence agencies suggest its purpose is clear: to generate hard currency that sustains the state despite sanctions. Reports link Room 39 to industries as diverse as mining, pharmaceuticals, and insurance fraud. Its reach is said to extend across continents, supported by a network of shell companies and front businesses. Yet no outsider has ever seen its operations directly. Defectors who once worked near the Workers' Party headquarters claim that Room 39 occupies a sealed floor, accessible only with special passes. Inside, they describe rows of offices where clerks manage accounts, draft contracts, and prepare shipments. But behind those routine appearances lies something larger. Testimony suggests it handles revenues from overseas arms sales, illicit narcotics trade, and possibly even state-directed cybercrime. The precise scale remains unknown, but estimates of its funds run as high as several $billion. One of the most persistent claims is that Room 39 controls North Korea's counterfeiting operations. Since the 1990s, US authorities have intercepted supernotes, counterfeit, 100 bills so precise they were almost undetectable. Investigations pointed toward North Korea, suggesting high-grade printing equipment had been smuggled in for the purpose. Former officials allege that Room 39 directed this effort, funneling the counterfeit currency into foreign banks and black markets to generate hard cash. Though these allegations have never been proven in court, the persistence of the claims keeps suspicion alive. Beyond counterfeiting, Room 39 is believed to oversee trading companies abroad. In 2009, an investigation into a Hong Kong company revealed ties to Pyongyang's finances, with profits routed back through opaque networks. Later, cyber thefts targeting banks in Bangladesh and Southeast Asia were attributed to North Korean hackers. Analysts suspect the profits flowed back to the same shadowy office. The web is intricate, stretching across jurisdictions, hidden behind false names and complex corporate structures. And yet, Room 39 is not only about illicit trade. Some accounts suggest it manages legitimate exports as well. Minerals, seafood, textiles, all routed through foreign partners to sidestep sanctions. By blending legal and illegal flows, it becomes almost impossible to trace. What is clear is that revenues sustain not just the leadership, but also the elaborate projects meant to project power, missile programs, nuclear research, and displays of military might. The question of control remains mysterious. Some defectors claim Room 39 reports directly to the supreme leader, bypassing even senior party officials. Others describe a board of loyal elites who oversee its many branches. Yet the secrecy is so complete that no two accounts fully align. What outsiders know is pieced together from intelligence leaks, financial audits, and whispered testimonies. Inside North Korea, mentioning Room 39 carries risk. Defectors recount stories of colleagues vanishing after loose remarks, their families reassigned to distant provinces. The office is more than bureaucracy, it is myth, wrapped in fear. Even its exact location is uncertain. Some place it inside the Workers' Party headquarters, while others believe it shifts between multiple sites, hidden within Pyongyang's labyrinth of government compounds. Western governments have sanctioned companies thought to be linked to Room 39, freezing assets and cutting off trade routes. But each time, new fronts appear, as if the organization were a hydra with endless heads. Its resilience suggests planning far more sophisticated than outsiders expect from an isolated state. What unsettles analysts most is how little is confirmed. Does Room 39 truly command billions, or is its power exaggerated to amplify fear? Is it simply an umbrella for North Korea's foreign exchange activities, or a deeper apparatus controlling nearly all revenue streams? The opacity is deliberate, making truth indistinguishable from rumor. At night, the Workers' Party headquarters in Pyongyang is lit only by dim security lamps. Behind its windows, most offices go dark. But those who once lived nearby recall a few floors where lights never seemed to switch off long after the city fell into blackout. Shadows still moved behind drawn curtains. And if Room 39 is truly the lifeblood of the regime, then somewhere in that glow, unseen hands continue to shift money across the world, sustaining a state that should not survive, yet does. Beneath Vatican City lies more than 50 miles of shelves, holding ancient manuscripts, papal decrees, and documents locked away from public view. Only a handful of scholars are permitted limited access each year. Whispers persist of letters from emperors, coded messages from kings, and maps that suggest knowledge far older than Christianity. Yet one collection is said to be sealed forever. The Vatican's archives, formerly known as the Archivum Secretum Apostolicum Vaticanum, were established in 1612 under Pope Paul V. Despite the name, secret does not mean sinister. It derives from the Latin secretum, meaning private. In practice, however, the archives function as one of the most inaccessible collections on Earth. Within their climate-controlled vaults are millions of pages chronicling 12 centuries of world history, guarded behind bronze doors and Swiss Guard patrols. Access is tightly controlled. Each year, a few dozen qualified scholars are allowed inside, but only for specific projects. Requests must be precise, naming exactly which documents one wishes to see. No wandering the shelves is permitted, and no more than 3 files may be consulted at a time. For most of humanity, the shelves themselves remain unseen, their contents reduced to rumors. Among the confirmed treasures are papal bulls, state treaties, and correspondence with figures like Michelangelo, Charlemagne, and even Abraham Lincoln. Letters from monarchs and emperors line the stacks, documenting diplomacy that shaped continents. But beyond these verified holdings are stories of stranger materials. Some whisper of a 12th century document describing the Knights Templar's hidden wealth. Others claim the archives contain Galileo's suppressed writings, or maps that chart lands long before explorers ever arrived. One of the most discussed texts is the letter from King Henry VIII to Pope Clement VII, requesting annulment of his marriage to Catherine of Aragon. The refusal of that request, preserved on Vatican parchment, helped ignite the English Reformation. Another is the Dictatus Papae, an 11th century decree asserting papal supremacy over kings, still relevant in debates over medieval politics. Such examples confirm that the archive is less a library than a record of power, its shelves holding the paper trail of decisions that reshaped nations. Yet the sealed collections fuel the greatest speculation. Certain sections remain permanently off-limits, accessible only to the Pope and his closest advisors. Historians debate what lies within. Lost Gospels excluded from the Bible, prophecies never revealed, or accounts of unexplained phenomena witnessed by the faithful. Some claim records exist of early encounters with cultures far beyond Europe, written in terms too strange for the era. Security is absolute. The archives are housed in reinforced vaults beneath the Apostolic Palace, protected from fire, flood, and even earthquake. Modern renovations include advanced climate systems and digitization of select documents, but the most sensitive materials remain in locked chests. Scholars who have entered describe a profound stillness, a silence broken only by the turning of ancient pages. Occasional leaks hint at what else might lie within. In the 19th century, Napoleon looted parts of the archive, transporting thousands of documents to Paris. When they were returned decades later, some bundles were missing, never recovered. What those vanished files contained is unknown. More recently, rumors spread of correspondence with scientists during the Second World War, documents that may shed light on the Vatican's knowledge of early nuclear research. For centuries, writers have imagined the archives as a vault of forbidden knowledge. Dan Brown novels, conspiracy theories, and documentaries all add to its aura. Yet the truth may be stranger. To guard 50 miles of shelves requires not only secrecy but intention. Every locked box, every sealed folder, represents a decision about what humanity is allowed to remember and what must remain hidden. At night, the Vatican's courtyards fall into shadow, the basilica lit softly against the Roman sky. Beneath those stones, the archives rest in silence, shelves stretching into darkness. Scholars will glimpse fragments. The rest will remain sealed, and if one collection is truly marked never to be opened, then somewhere in the labyrinth lies knowledge meant not for this age, but for another. Hidden deep in the southern Ural Mountains, the town of Mezgori does not appear on most maps. Established in the 1970s, it houses a population of restricted workers and guarded perimeters. Officially, it supports mining operations. Unofficially, defectors claim it conceals nuclear stockpiles beneath Mount Yamantau. But satellite scans revealed something else entirely. Mount Yamantau rises more than 50 feet above sea level, an isolated massif in Bashkortostan. Its name translates to Evil Mountain in the local Bashkir language, a title that predates the Cold War and hints at an older fear. During the Soviet era, the mountain was sealed off, its slopes guarded by military checkpoints and fences. Villages nearby were emptied or restricted. In their place, the secretive town of Mezgori was built, populated by military families and specialists who could not freely leave. For decades, rumors swirled about what lay beneath Yamantau's granite bulk. In the 1990s, as the Soviet Union collapsed, American satellites began to detect unusual construction. Vast tunnels appeared at the mountain's base, heavy transport convoys moved through guarded roads, and entire tracts of land were stripped bare. The United States pressed Moscow for answers, but officials gave conflicting explanations: food storage one year, mining operations the next, then archives, then a shelter for government leaders. None were ever confirmed. Analysts soon speculated that Yamantau was designed as the largest nuclear bunker in the world, a facility meant to withstand a direct strike and safeguard Russia's command structure. Some estimates placed its capacity at 60 people, supplied with stockpiles of food, water, and power. If true, it would rival any Cold War project in scale, a hidden city carved beneath stone, but conclusive evidence remained elusive. What satellite imagery did confirm was activity. Throughout the 1990s and 2000s, photos revealed new rail lines snaking into the mountains, convoys of trucks entering hidden portals, and fresh excavations covering square miles. The cost of such work, undertaken even as Russia struggled economically, suggested immense importance. Yet no independent observers have ever entered. Defectors who once served in Bashkortostan describe strict security. Mezgori itself is walled and patrolled, accessible only with special permits. Families living there receive housing, schools, and shops, but little contact with outsiders. Some recall convoys moving at night, trucks disappearing into tunnels large enough to swallow aircraft. Others claim strange machinery was stored in underground halls, guarded more tightly than even the rumored stockpiles of nuclear weapons. Theories multiply in the absence of facts. Some believe Yamantau is a vault for Russia's cultural treasures, art, archives, even gold reserves. Others suspect advanced weapons research, protected by the mountain's isolation. American intelligence once speculated that command and control bunkers inside Yamantau were linked by tunnels stretching for miles, forming a subterranean network across the Urals. The scale of such a project would be extraordinary, but satellite scans hint at patterns that suggest it is not impossible. What unsettles observers most is the secrecy that persists long after the Cold War ended. Unlike other nuclear sites, which saw partial declassification in the 1990s, Yamantau remains fully shrouded. Modern Russian leaders refuse to comment on its purpose. Even its location is absent from most official maps. On the ground, fences and guards ensure no journalist or civilian approaches too closely. From the air, the mountain looks silent snow on its ridges, forests at its base. But heat signatures tell a different story. Satellite thermal scans occasionally detect unexpected warmth radiating from deep within, as though vast underground facilities continue to hum with life. One US report noted patterns inconsistent with natural geology, though the details remain classified. Mezhgori today still houses a population estimated at 17,000, sustained by work no outsider can verify. Its streets are patrolled, its residents live under rules that forbid disclosure. The town functions like any other, with shops and schools, but beneath the surface lies purpose unknown. And so the question lingers: is Mount Yamantau a relic of Cold War paranoia? A hollowed vault waiting for a war that never came? Or is it still active, a living fortress guarding something the world has not yet seen? For now, only the mountain knows. In Xi'an, China, the first emperor lies beneath a massive burial mound sealed for over 20 years. The terracotta army guards him in silence, but the central chamber has never been opened. Ancient texts describe rivers of liquid mercury flowing through the tomb, a detail confirmed by modern soil tests. But Chinese authorities have forbidden excavation for reasons they will not fully disclose. Qin Shi Huang, the unifier of China, ruled from 221 to 210 BCE. His reign brought together warring states under a single empire, standardized currency and writing, and launched the construction of the Great Wall. Yet the emperor feared death, and his obsession with immortality shaped his burial. According to historical accounts, he ordered a tomb complex so vast that it rivaled an underground city. Construction took decades and required more than 700 workers. Many never left the site alive, buried with their labor to preserve secrecy. The burial mound itself rises nearly 250 feet above the surrounding plains. Beneath it, archaeologists believe, lies a chambered palace containing treasures, weapons, and intricate models of the empire. The most famous discovery so far is the terracotta army, unearthed accidentally in 1974 by farmers digging a well. Thousands of clay soldiers, each unique in face and dress, stand in battle formation. Horses, chariots, and bronze weapons accompany them. Their paint faded, but their craftsmanship intact. The sheer scale suggests that what lies beneath the mound may be greater still. Ancient historian Sima Qian wrote in 100 BCE that the emperor's tomb was designed with rivers and seas of flowing mercury to mimic the geography of China. In his account, the ceiling was painted with stars, and mechanical traps were installed to ward off intruders. At the time, such tales seemed like myth. But in recent decades, scientific soil analysis around the mound has revealed elevated levels of mercury, hundreds of times above normal background levels. The evidence suggests that beneath the earth, toxic rivers may still flow. Despite this, excavation has been forbidden Chinese authorities cite concerns over preservation, fearing that opening the tomb would expose artifacts to irreversible decay, just as early digs caused the terracotta figures to lose their painted colors. Archaeologists agree that current technology cannot guarantee safe preservation once the chamber is breached. Yet some believe there are deeper reasons. If mercury vapor still lingers, entering the tomb could be deadly. Others suspect that the traps described in ancient texts, crossbows primed to fire, or collapsing chambers, may still lie in wait, preserved by centuries of isolation. Modern surveys with ground-penetrating radar confirm the presence of vast, hollow spaces within the mound, consistent with burial chambers and connecting tunnels. Yet the full layout remains unknown, as scans cannot penetrate far enough to reveal detailed structures. What is clear is that the tomb dwarfs any other discovered in China, its secrets carefully sealed by both time and deliberate intent. The prohibition has fueled speculation. Some suggest that texts or artifacts inside might alter understandings of China's early history. Others imagine caches of lost inventions or records of Qin's pursuit of immortality, which included alchemists, strange potions, and expeditions searching for mythical islands of eternal life. The emperor himself died after consuming mercury pills, believing them to grant longevity. The irony is striking. In seeking immortality, he may have poisoned himself, leaving his tomb a monument both to ambition and to death. For now, visitors walk the surrounding museums, gazing at ranks of terracotta warriors frozen in eternal watch. Guides point to the burial mound in the distance, its grass-covered slopes untouched, its entrance sealed. The sense is palpable. Behind those walls, something extraordinary sleeps, but time exerts pressure. Mercury slowly seeps into soil. Earthquakes shift foundations. As technology advances, the call to explore will grow louder. Until then, the first emperor lies in silence, guarded by thousands of clay soldiers and mysteries. No one dares disturb, and if the rivers of mercury still course beneath, then the tomb of Qin Shi Huang is not just a grave, it is an ancient machine, waiting for the day its seal is finally broken. Discovered in 1940, the caves in southwestern France hold Paleolithic paintings over 1700 years old. Horses, stags and bulls leap across the stone walls in flickering torchlight. But in 1963, the caves were sealed after exposure to human breath, and lights caused the art to decay. Today, only scientists in protective suits may enter. Yet new scans suggest there are undiscovered chambers beyond the known galleries. The story begins with 4 teenagers and a dog. In September 1940, near the village of Montignac, they stumbled upon a hole in the ground. After the dog disappeared into it, crawling through the opening, they entered a hidden chamber. What their torchlight revealed astonished them. Vast panels covered in painted animals, as vivid as if they had been created the day before. Stags with branching antlers, horses mid-gallop, and massive aurochs filled the walls in dynamic movement. Some figures stretched more than 16 feet long. Word spread quickly, and archaeologists soon confirmed that this was one of the most important prehistoric art sites ever discovered. The paintings date to the Upper Paleolithic, around 15,017 years ago. Created by Cro-Magnon humans, they demonstrate both artistry and symbolism. The pigments, reds, blacks, and yellows were made from minerals like iron oxide and charcoal, applied with brushes, pads, or blown through hollowed bones. Flickering torchlight would have made the animals appear to move across the walls, turning the caves into a kind of prehistoric theatre. Alongside the animals are mysterious symbols, dots, grids, and abstract shapes that scholars still cannot fully decipher. Initially, Lascaux was opened to the public. By the 1950s, thousands of visitors entered each year, their footsteps echoing in the cool chambers. But the human presence brought unintended consequences. Carbon dioxide from breath, heat from lamps, and humidity began to alter the cave's delicate ecosystem. Green algae spread across the walls, and crystals formed over pigments. In 1963, the French government closed the caves to all but scientists, fearing the art would vanish within a generation if left exposed. Today, entry is tightly controlled. Researchers wear sterile suits and limit their time inside. Despite efforts, the cave has faced outbreaks of mold and fungi, requiring constant monitoring. To protect the legacy, replicas of the cave Lascaux 3 and 4 have been built nearby, allowing visitors to experience the art without endangering the original. These facsimiles are so precise that even experts struggle to tell them apart from the real thing, yet mysteries remain. Recent studies using ground-penetrating radar and laser scans suggest that behind some sections of the cave wall lie voids, hidden chambers that may contain more art. Because drilling risks damaging the known galleries, these chambers have never been opened. The possibility that entire new sections remain sealed fuels speculation. What other stories did Paleolithic artists leave behind, unseen for millennia? The purpose of the paintings themselves is still debated. Some believe they were part of hunting rituals, designed to ensure success by depicting animals in abundance. Others argue they carried spiritual meaning, perhaps serving as shamanic visions or myths painted into stone. The presence of abstract signs suggests a symbolic language that may predate writing. If true, Lascaux holds not only art, but the earlier steps toward recorded thought. Inside, the atmosphere is unlike any other place on Earth. The temperature holds steady at about 12 degrees Celsius. The air is damp, the silence absolute. Scientists describe the feeling of standing in front of the paintings as overwhelming, the sense that the walls themselves breathe with memory. The animals are not frozen, they seem alive, caught mid-stride, a bridge between the distant past and the present. The caves also carry tragedy. During World War II, German troops occupied the region, and for a time, access to the site was uncertain. Later, as tourism exploded, the damage nearly erased the art forever. Each step in its history reveals both discovery and fragility, a reminder of how easily treasures can be lost. And still, the sealed chambers wait. Technology may one day reveal what lies beyond the walls, but until then, the mystery endures. Perhaps more animals run in eternal motion there, or symbols no one alive today could understand. The caves of Lascaux remind us that long before cities or empires, humans painted their stories into darkness. And somewhere beyond the known galleries, untouched for 1700 years, another story may still be waiting to emerge. Beneath the streets of Paris stretch 200 miles of tunnels lined with bones. 6 million Parisians were moved here in the 18th century when cemeteries overflowed. Only a small section is open to tourists. The rest is sealed, patrolled, and forbidden. Urban explorers who sneak in report vast halls collapsing into silence and markings carved far more recently than expected. The catacombs began not as graves but as quarries. For centuries, Paris grew by extracting limestone from beneath its own feet. Tunnels stretched outward in a hidden labyrinth, supporting the city above. By the 1700s, however, overflowing cemeteries created a crisis. Graves collapsed, spilling remains into nearby homes and streets. The government ordered the transfer of bones into the abandoned quarries, beginning in 1786. Night after night, carts moved through Paris, carrying human remains covered in black cloth, escorted by priests chanting blessings. Inside the quarries, bones were stacked with eerie precision. Skulls formed neat rows, femurs piled like masonry. Over time, the deposits created corridors lined entirely with human remains, a city of the dead beneath the living. Today, visitors to the official Catacombs Museum walk only a mile of tunnels, but the network stretches far beyond, branching into dark passages that few have seen. The atmosphere is unlike anywhere else. The air is damp, heavy with the scent of stone and soil. Water drips steadily from ceilings, collecting in shallow pools that reflect torchlight. Silence dominates, broken only by the echo of footsteps. For centuries, this underworld has inspired fascination, fear, and legend. Authorities guard the tunnels carefully. Many entrances are sealed, and police patrols, the so-called cataphlix, regularly search for trespassers. Yet explorers, known as cataphiles, continue to find ways inside. They describe a hidden world. Chambers filled with graffiti, makeshift cinemas, and even underground concerts. Some halls stretch for hundreds of feet, their ceilings reinforced with ancient masonry. Others crumble without warning, collapsing into rubble. Maps circulate secretly among urban explorers, but the network is vast, and many areas remain unmapped. Stranger discoveries also surface. In 2004, police stumbled upon an underground cinema complete with projection equipment, seating, and a stocked bar, all hidden in the catacombs. The group responsible was never identified. In another case, explorers reported stumbling upon modern carvings etched into walls. Inscriptions dated not to the 18th century, but to the last few decades. Their meaning remains unclear. Some appear as symbols, others as words in languages foreign to Paris. The dangers are real. In 1793, Philibert Asper, a doorkeeper at a nearby hospital, entered the catacombs with only a lantern. He became lost in the maze, and his body was not found until 11 years later, identified by his hospital key ring. His grave remains inside, marked with a plaque. Even today, stories circulate of explorers who vanish after descending without maps or guides. The tunnels twist endlessly, some leading to flooded chambers, others ending abruptly in collapse. Historians suggest the catacombs hold more than bones. Sections remain unstudied, sealed since the 18th century. Some speculate that valuables, relics, or even archives may have been hidden here during revolutions and wars. During World War II, both the French resistance and German forces used the tunnels for secret operations, carving new routes and chambers. Remnants of their occupation, inscriptions, tool marks, even equipment remain scattered in the dark. Modern technology has begun to scan the labyrinth, revealing chambers long forgotten, yet many voids remain unexplored, their entrances too unstable for safe passage. Beneath one of the world's most visited cities lies a realm that resists complete mapping, a shadow Paris that continues to hold secrets. Above, millions walk unaware of the dead beneath their feet. Traffic rumbles, lights flicker, and life continues, supported by fragile stone. Below, the silence remains unbroken, the bones of centuries waiting in stacked stillness. And in those forbidden tunnels, explorers whisper of walls freshly carved, markings too new to belong to the dead. Who or what still moves within the empire of bones is a question left unanswered. 16. Heard Island Volcano. Located between Madagascar and Antarctica, Heard Island is one of the most remote places on Earth. Its volcano, Big Ben, rises more than 9.0 feet, shrouded in storms and constant snow. Access is restricted by the Australian government, citing both environmental protection and extreme danger. Yet satellite images captured something moving across the glaciers. Heard Island lies in the southern Indian Ocean, more than 500 miles from the nearest major landmass. It is governed by Australia, but even most Australians have never heard of it, let alone set foot on its shores. The island is dominated by Big Ben, an active stratovolcano whose icy slopes plunge directly into the sea. Lava flows have been recorded as recently as 2016, glowing faintly against snowstorms. Few human eyes have ever witnessed such eruptions in person, as landing here requires weeks of sailing through some of the roughest waters on Earth. The environment is brutal. Winds often exceed 100 miles per hour, while temperatures hover near freezing year-round. Sheets of rain, sleet, and snow sweep across the island in sudden bursts, and fog often reduces visibility to only a few feet. Permanent research stations have never been established, partly due to the logistics of supply, and partly because Heard Island is a UNESCO World Heritage Site protected for its untouched ecosystems. Expeditions that do arrive must obtain strict permits, and even then, most retreat quickly under pressure from the elements. Despite its remoteness, Heard Island has drawn scientific attention. Its glaciers are among the fastest retreating in the world, shrinking dramatically over the past few decades. The island serves as a bellwether for climate change, revealing how rising temperatures transform even the most isolated environments. Big Ben itself provides a rare opportunity to study volcanic activity beneath an ice cap, a combination found in very few places on Earth. Yet what has unsettled observers are anomalies spotted from orbit. In 2012, and again in 2015, satellite images revealed long dark streaks crossing the white glaciers, lines too straight, too extended, to be dismissed as natural cracks. Some suggested they were melt channels, carved by subglacial streams. Others pointed out that their direction and pattern shifted too suddenly, as if something had moved across the ice in deliberate paths. The images sparked speculation, but no official statement was issued. Urban legends quickly grew. Some whispered of secret military activity, of submarines surfacing in the island's secluded bays. Others spoke of unusual wildlife, perhaps giant seals or unknown species dragging themselves across the ice. Scientists urged caution, noting that avalanches, rockfalls, or crevasse collapses could also leave such marks. But the mystery deepened when subsequent images showed the streaks vanishing, replaced by unbroken snow, as if nothing had ever passed that way. Those few expeditions that landed on the island reported eerie stillness. The calls of seabirds echoed off glaciers, and colonies of penguins dotted the shore. But beyond the coast, silence prevailed. The slopes of Big Ben rumbled with distant avalanches, and fumaroles vented sulfur-scented steam into the freezing air. Some climbers described an unsettling sense of being watched, though no living presence stirred beyond the howling wind. Australia maintains strict restrictions on access, officially to preserve fragile ecosystems of mosses, lichens, and rare bird species. Yet some explorers question whether the dangers of Heard Island extend beyond weather and wildlife. Its volcanic interior remains unmapped, its glaciers conceal caverns that no human has entered, and its isolation makes it an ideal place to hide activity never meant to be seen. For now, Heard Island remains empty. No settlements, no permanent structures, only the occasional tent pitched by scientists braving a storm. From satellites, its slopes appear untouched, save for the fleeting marks once captured crossing its glaciers. And if something truly moved there, whether animal, machine, or avalanche, its tracks are long since buried by snow, sealed again in the silence of one of the loneliest places on Earth. On November 14th, 1963, a volcanic eruption beneath the sea gave birth to Surtsey. Scientists declared it a natural laboratory, sealing it off to all but a handful of researchers. Human interference is forbidden, even the accidental dropping of seeds or spores. Decades later, the island revealed ecosystems no one predicted and signs of something unexpected buried in its ash. The eruption began without warning. Fishermen off Iceland's southern coast first spotted plumes of smoke and steam rising from the sea. Within days, an island emerged, black rock hissing as it met the cold Atlantic. Explosions of ash and fire sent columns 0 feet into the sky. By the time the eruption ceased in 1967, Surtsey measured nearly a square mile in area, its jagged surface still steaming. Few moments in history have allowed humans to witness land being created before their eyes. From the beginning, Icelandic authorities decided Surtsey would remain untouched. Unlike other new islands colonized by settlements, this one was declared off-limits. No tourism, no construction, no interference. Only a small team of researchers, bound by strict rules, could enter. Even accidental contamination was considered dangerous. Scientists were required to scrub their clothing and gear before stepping ashore. When a tomato plant sprouted from discarded food waste, it was removed immediately, a reminder of how fragile the experiment was. Nature advanced without help. Mosses and lichens anchored themselves to the basalt first. Seeds soon followed, carried by currents, winds, and seabirds. By the 1980s, grasses and flowering plants had begun to spread. Today, more than 60 plant species grow on Surtsey. Puffins dig burrows, gulls nest by the thousands, and seals haul out on the black beaches. In less than half a century, a barren volcanic rock became a functioning ecosystem, but some discoveries were stranger. Microbes appeared deep in the ash layers, thriving in heat and minerals where scientists expected sterility. Unfamiliar bacteria were identified, species not recorded elsewhere in Iceland, hinting at unique evolutionary paths sparked by extreme conditions. Astrobiologists took notice. To them, Surtsey offered a glimpse of how life might arise on barren planets, demonstrating resilience in the harshest environments. The island, however, is shrinking. The sea gnaws constantly at its edges, waves carrying away loose rock. Much of Surtsey has already disappeared beneath the surf. Yet what remains is hardening, volcanic minerals fusing into a dense, concrete-like material that may preserve its core for centuries. Its impermanence makes every discovery more urgent. Beneath the surface, more mysteries lie. Cooling lava created hollow tubes and caverns, some large enough to enter. In these dark spaces, dripping mineral formations glitter against lamplight, and colonies of microbes cling to warm stone. One expedition described crystalline growths of unknown origin, cautious in their reports, unwilling to conclude whether they were purely mineral or partly biological. Even satellites have detected anomalies. In certain seasons, Surtsey radiates unexpected heat, patterns inconsistent with ordinary volcanic cooling. Some geologists speculate that molten chambers may still lurk below, interacting with seawater in ways yet to be studied. Others dismiss it as residual geothermal activity. The truth remains buried beneath tons of ash and rock. For most people, Surtsey is invisible. It lies beyond the horizon, out of reach, restricted by law and isolation. Ships pass at a distance. Aircraft only rarely fly overhead. The island exists more in reports and photographs than in human memory. And yet, within that silence, something extraordinary continues. Life spreads across black soil. Caverns deepen beneath the hardened crust. Ash conceals formations still unexplained. Born in fire, Surtsey has grown into a world of silence. And somewhere beneath its surface, the newborn island may still be changing, holding secrets not yet ready to be revealed. In New York's East River lies North Brother Island. Once home to Riverside Hospital, it housed patients with smallpox, tuberculosis, and typhoid fever. The infamous Typhoid Mary died here in 1938. Today the hospital lies in ruins, vines swallowing its halls. Entry is forbidden to protect nesting birds, but aerial surveys showed strange disturbances in the trees. North Brother Island is small, less than 20 acres, positioned between the Bronx and Rikers Island. Despite being in the heart of New York City, it feels hidden, cut off by swift currents, and surrounded by strict no-entry policies. For centuries, it was a place of isolation, chosen not for its beauty but for its ability to contain the sick and unwanted. Riverside Hospital was first built there in the 1880s, intended as a quarantine facility for smallpox victims. Later it expanded to treat waves of infectious disease, scarlet fever, tuberculosis, and typhoid. Ferries carried patients to the island, often against their will, leaving them to recover or die in brick wards that grew steadily over the decades. The island became infamous for one resident above all, Mary Mallon, better known as Typhoid Mary. Mallon was an asymptomatic carrier of typhoid fever, spreading infection through her work as a cook. Despite repeated warnings, she continued to work, linked to dozens of outbreaks. In 1915, authorities confined her permanently to North Brother Island, where she lived under surveillance for more than 2 decades. She died there in 1938, her body buried apart from those she had infected. Her story remains a reminder of how fear and medicine intertwined during times of crisis. But Riverside Hospital's history holds more than disease. In 1904, the General Slocum, a passenger steamer, caught fire in the East River. More than 10 people died, many within sight of North Brother Island's shore. Survivors staggered onto its beaches, where doctors and nurses treated burns and shock. The tragedy left a shadow over the island, binding it to one of New York's worst maritime disasters. After the hospital closed in the 1950s, the island shifted roles. It briefly became housing for World War II veterans, and later a rehabilitation center for drug addicts. But poor funding, scandal, and the difficulty of isolation led to abandonment by the early 1960s. Since then, the hospital complex has decayed, its walls collapsing under ivy, its windows shattered by storms, trees sprout from rooftops, and staircases end in mid-air where floors have rotted through. Today, the island is off-limits. The city designates it as a sanctuary for nesting herons and other seabirds, whose colonies thrive in the absence of people. Entry requires special permits, rarely granted, and patrols ensure that curious boaters keep their distance. From the water, the crumbling hospital buildings can still be glimpsed through foliage, like fragments of a lost city overtaken by forest. Yet, aerial surveys revealed something unexpected. In recent years, researchers using drones and satellite images noticed unusual gaps opening in the canopy patches where trees seemed disturbed or flattened, yet with no record of storms strong enough to explain them. The patterns appeared irregular, not like natural die-off, but as though something had pressed through the growth. Officials offered no comment, dismissing the findings as ordinary shifts in vegetation. Still, the disturbances remain unexplained. Urban explorers, though barred, whisper about hidden paths through the ruins. Some claim to have seen faint lights in upper windows at night, though the buildings have no power supply. Others speak of carved markings inside wards, far more recent than the hospital's closure, as if someone has entered despite the prohibition. For now, the silence prevails. Herons nest undisturbed. Trees rise higher each season, and the hospital sinks deeper into decay. North Brother Island sits within sight of one of the world's busiest cities, yet it is forgotten, cut off by law and water. And beneath its canopy, where aerial images reveal scars in the trees, questions linger. Whether nature alone caused the disturbances, or whether something else moves within the ruins, remains unknown. Just 65 miles northwest of Las Vegas lies the Nevada test site, where more than 900 nuclear detonations scarred the desert floor. The ground remains riddled with craters. Radiation persists in the soil. Tours are sometimes offered, but most of the vast restricted area remains closed. Satellite images reveal structures hidden even from official maps. The Nevada test site, now officially known as the Nevada National Security Site, was established in 1951 at the height of the Cold War. It spans more than 350 square miles larger than the state of Rhode Island, an expanse of desert chosen for its remoteness. Here, between mountain ranges and arid basins, the United States tested nuclear weapons for 4 decades. Mushroom clouds once rose so frequently that they were visible from the Las Vegas Strip, where hotels even advertised atomic viewings as part of their entertainment. The site hosted both atmospheric and underground detonations. Early tests were conducted above ground, producing massive fireballs and shockwaves. But by the 1960s, international treaties forced most experiments underground. Engineers drilled deep shafts into the desert floor, lowering nuclear devices thousands of feet below the surface. When detonated, these blasts vaporized rock, collapsed chambers, and left sinkholes and craters still visible today. The Sedan crater, created in 1962, measures nearly 300 feet wide and over 300 feet deep, a scar visible even from orbit. Radiation from the tests spread across wide regions, carried by winds into Utah, Arizona, and beyond. Decades later, studies linked fallout to increased cancer rates in downwind communities. Survivors became known as downwinders, many of whom pressed for recognition and compensation. To this day, debates continue over the full extent of exposure and its long-term effects. Despite the hazards, the Nevada test site became a proving ground for nuclear strategy. Bomb shelters were built and destroyed to test their resilience. Military vehicles, aircraft, and even entire mock towns were placed near blasts, their remains studied afterward. Photographs show mannequins dressed in 1950s clothing seated in living rooms, their plastic bodies melted by fireballs. These doom towns were grim experiments, designed to study what nuclear war would look like for ordinary neighborhoods. After the last full-scale nuclear test in 1992, the site did not close. Instead, it shifted to subcritical experiments, simulations, and research. Underground facilities now study nuclear materials without triggering chain reactions. Vast laboratories operate out of sight, their details classified. Satellite imagery, however, shows new buildings and long runways added in recent decades, some of which never appear on official maps. The exact purpose of these additions remains secret. Occasional public tours are offered, but they are carefully controlled. Visitors are shown craters, viewing stations, and remnants of past tests, but vast sections remain inaccessible. Photographs are restricted, and many areas are bypassed without explanation. Guides speak openly about history, but not about ongoing operations. Rumors fill the silence. Some claim the site houses underground bunkers intended for government continuity, rivaling facilities like Mount Weather. Others suspect advanced weapons research, hidden in miles of sealed tunnels. The desert's emptiness makes verification impossible. Yet aerial surveys hint at unusual activity: fresh roads, new fencing, and areas of disturbed soil suggesting expansion beneath the ground. For locals, the test site is both familiar and unsettling. Its history is woven into Nevada's identity, yet its operations remain largely invisible. Pilots flying nearby know to avoid its restricted airspace. Hikers who stray too close to the perimeter encounter armed security and cameras that detect movement long before they arrive. The desert appears empty, but it is watched, patrolled, and guarded. From the air, the land is marked with hundreds of scars, circles of blasted earth, their edges bleached by sun and time. They tell a story of decades when the world balanced on the edge of destruction, rehearsing war in the silence of the desert. And yet, deep within the test site, where satellites glimpse structures unlisted on maps, questions remain. What is still being prepared in the silence of Nevada's desert? And for whom? When the vault flooded in 2017, engineers discovered meltwater where none should have been. The entrance was reinforced, but the incident raised an unsettling question. If the vault itself, the supposed safeguard for all humanity, can be threatened, what else might be at risk? The Svalbard Global Seed Vault was conceived as humanity's insurance policy. Built into the permafrost of a mountain outside Longyearbyen, Norway, it opened in 2008 as a secure backup for the world's crops. Within its concrete wedge lies space for more than 4 million seed samples, duplicates of those stored in regional seed banks across the globe. Wheat, rice, maize, barley, and countless others rest here in sealed packages, each catalogued, each waiting in case of catastrophe. Svalbard was chosen for its stability. Located just 800 miles from the North Pole, the archipelago is remote, politically neutral, and anchored in ancient rock. The vault itself extends 400 feet into sandstone, its chambers cooled to 18 degrees Celsius. Even without power, the surrounding permafrost was expected to preserve the seeds for centuries. Engineers described it as a fortress against any future crisis, war, famine, or climate change. For nearly a decade, the vault seemed unshakable. But in late 2016, unusual warmth swept the Arctic. Winter rains fell where snow should have, and permafrost began to thaw. In early 2017, water seeped into the entrance tunnel of the seed vault. Though the storage chambers themselves were untouched, the intrusion was alarming. Meltwater had never been expected to reach the vault at all. Crews rushed to repair the entrance. Pumps were installed, waterproof walls reinforced, and drainage improved. Officials assured the public that the seeds were safe, yet the incident revealed a vulnerability that the original designers had not anticipated. The very climate meant to protect the vault was changing faster than predicted. The breach carried symbolic weight. The seed vault had been marketed as fail-safe, a final safeguard against disaster. If even this could be threatened, the illusion of permanence faltered. Journalists asked what might happen in the event of rising seas, earthquakes, or geopolitical conflict. Scientists pointed out that climate change is reshaping the Arctic more rapidly than anywhere else, raising questions about the vault's long-term security. Meanwhile, the seeds themselves continue to grow in number. Deposits arrive from nearly every country, each shipment containing thousands of carefully sealed envelopes. Some come from conflict zones, like Syria, where war has threatened local seed banks. In 2015, seeds withdrawn from Svalbard were used to restart agricultural collections in Lebanon after facilities in Aleppo were destroyed. The vault proved its worth, but also highlighted the fragility of global food security. Inside, the atmosphere is austere. Fluorescent lights hum in long corridors carved into stone. Pallets stacked with boxes line the storage rooms, each marked with barcodes and origins. The air is kept dry, the temperature steady, the silence unbroken except for the hum of cooling systems. It is a place designed not for people, but for preservation. Yet beneath its utilitarian calm lingers unease. Reports note that even with reinforcements, thawing permafrost continues to pose a risk. Some researchers warn that if Arctic warming accelerates, the conditions that once made Svalbard ideal may eventually undermine it. Others wonder whether humanity's reliance on a single global vault is itself a weakness, concentrating security in one remote location. From the outside, the entrance juts into the frozen hillside like a concrete arrow. At night, a glowing light installation makes it visible against the polar dark, a beacon of reassurance. But in 2017, when meltwater spilled across its floor, that image cracked. The seed vault was built as a bulwark against uncertainty. The flood proved that even bulwarks can fail, and if the coldest, most remote safeguard on Earth can be breached, the question remains, what other protections we trust may already be weaker than we think? In the Karakum Desert, a massive gas crater has been burning since 1971. Soviet engineers accidentally ignited it while drilling, expecting the fire to burn out in days. Half a century later, the flames still rage, visible for miles across the desert night. Locals call it the door to hell, yet geologists warn the fire may only be masking a deeper instability beneath the sands. The crater lies near the village of Dervez in Turkmenistan's barren desert interior. In the late Soviet era, geologists were prospecting for natural gas, drilling into what they assumed was a stable pocket. Instead, the ground collapsed, swallowing drilling equipment and leaving behind a gaping pit nearly 230 feet wide. Methane gas poured from the cavity, raising fears of poisoning local air and water. To prevent disaster, engineers made a quick decision: ignite the gas. The flames would consume the methane in a few weeks, they believed, and then the crater would cool. But the blaze never stopped. More than 50 years later, the fire still burns, fueled by vast underground reserves. At night, the flames roar and flicker, casting a red glow against the desert sky. Travelers describe the scene as otherworldly. The heat intense, the smell of gas lingering, the air shimmering as if the earth itself were alive with fire. The site has become one of Turkmenistan's most famous landmarks. Despite the government's reluctance to advertise it, tourists who reach the remote desert describe standing on the crater's rim, hearing the low thunder of fire echoing from its depths. Winds whip across the sand, carrying waves of heat that can singe skin even at a distance. Beneath the edge, flames curl and leap from black rock, feeding endlessly from hidden veins of gas. Scientists remain divided on how long the fire can last. Some estimate it may burn for centuries, drawing from massive natural reservoirs. Others warn that the blaze could destabilize surrounding ground, creating new collapses or releasing gas in unpredictable ways. The Karakum Desert is riddled with underground cavities formed by extraction, and the stability of the land is uncertain. In recent years, Turkmenistan's government has expressed unease. In 2022, President Gurbanguly Berdimuhamedov announced plans to extinguish the crater, citing environmental and health risks. Methane is a potent greenhouse gas, and burning releases both heat and toxic byproducts. Yet, extinguishing the fire has proven impossible. Proposals to seal it with soil or flood it with chemicals risk further collapse. For now, the door to hell remains open. Locals carry their own stories. Some nomadic communities consider the crater cursed, a wound in the desert that should not be approached. Others view it with awe, a reminder of human folly when tampering with the Earth's hidden forces. At night, when stars scatter the desert sky, the pit glows like a false sun, its flames licking into darkness, its heat warping the silence of the dunes. Explorers who descend nearby caves report unusual gas concentrations, warning of unseen hazards. Geologists caution that the visible fire may only represent one pocket of activity, with others hidden deeper underground. If one collapse could create the present crater, what might lie below still undisturbed? The door to hell is both spectacle and warning. It draws those who seek its strange beauty, yet it is also a reminder of the risks buried beneath deserts, worldwide resources tapped without full understanding, landscapes altered with consequences that echo for generations. For now, the crater burns on, a beacon of fire in the emptiness of the Karakum. It began as a mistake, a miscalculation, but half a century later, it has become a symbol of human ambition, of nature's force, and of mysteries that still smolder beneath the shifting sands. And if the fire is only a surface wound, then somewhere below, the desert may be holding something even larger, waiting to break through. In the southern Urals lies Lake Karachay, once used as a dumping ground for nuclear waste during the Cold War. Its waters are so radioactive that standing on its shore for an hour can kill. Today, concrete has been poured over parts of it, but the danger lingers, and measurements show something still leaking into the groundwater. Lake Karachay is small, less than 1 square mile, but its history has made it one of the most dangerous places on Earth. Beginning in the 1950s, Soviet authorities used it as a convenient disposal site for waste from the Mayak Production Association, one of Russia's largest nuclear weapons complexes. For decades, liquid radioactive material was pumped directly into the lake. No containment, no warning. The secrecy of the Cold War meant little oversight and little concern for long-term consequences. By the 1960s, radiation levels had reached lethal intensity. Scientists measured doses along the shoreline strong enough to kill a person in less than an hour. Birds that landed on the water died quickly, their bodies sinking into toxic depths. Locals living downwind or downstream began to suffer mysterious illnesses, cancers, birth defects, and weakened immune systems. Thousands of cases accumulated before the scope of contamination was even acknowledged. Disaster struck in 1967, when drought caused the lake to partially dry. Wind carried radioactive dust from the exposed lake bed across villages and farmland. An estimated 500,000 people were exposed, many unknowingly. Reports of the event were suppressed for years, but survivors describe livestock dying in fields and children falling ill without explanation. To this day, it remains one of the least known, yet most severe, nuclear accidents in history. By the late 20th century, Soviet and later Russian authorities began efforts to contain the site. Sections of the lake were filled with concrete blocks and gravel, intended to trap radioactive sediment beneath. Large cooling ponds and reservoirs were constructed nearby to dilute runoff. Yet, even with these measures, Lake Karachay remained a hazard. Radiation continues to seep into groundwater, raising fears that rivers feeding the Ob Basin, a vast water system reaching the Arctic Ocean, could one day carry contamination far beyond the Urals. For those who visit under strict protection, the atmosphere is eerie. From a distance, Lake Karachay looks unremarkable, a still body of water ringed by forest and low hills. Yet instruments tell another story. Geiger counters click rapidly, their needles spiking as they near the shore. Protective suits and respirators are required, and time on site is carefully limited. Even brief exposure is considered dangerous. Environmental groups have long questioned the effectiveness of the containment measures. Rain and snowmelt continue to wash into the basin, raising water levels and spreading contamination to surrounding soil. Reports suggest that underground channels may carry radioactive material outward, beyond the barriers placed above ground. Despite decades of remediation, the site cannot be fully neutralized. Local communities live with the legacy. Many residents of the Chelyabinsk region still face health problems linked to radiation exposure, though official acknowledgement has been limited. Some families were relocated, while others remained in contaminated areas without clear warning. The secrecy of the Soviet program ensured that few understood what had happened until long after the damage was done. Satellite images today reveal patches of concrete where the lake once rippled, a scarred landscape of half-finished containment. But no aerial view can capture the invisible danger that lingers. And, beneath the surface, radioactive isotopes with half-lives stretching thousands of years continue to emit their silent energy, seeping slowly into the earth. Lake Karachay is not just a reminder of Cold War recklessness, it is a wound still open, still leaking. And though officials claim the site is secure, measurements tell another story. Radiation spreading, groundwater shifting, the poison moving farther than expected. If concrete cannot hold it forever, then Lake Karachay may yet prove that some scars cannot be buried, no matter how deeply they are covered. Beneath Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula lies a labyrinth of flooded caves known as cenotes. To the ancient Maya, they were portals to the underworld. Archaeologists diving these passages have discovered human remains, offerings, and carved altars deep in the dark. But in 2018, explorers mapped a connection between systems that revealed something far larger than expected. The Yucatan is honeycombed with limestone caverns, carved over millennia by water seeping through porous rock. Many of these caves collapsed at their ceilings, forming cenotes, natural wells that open like windows into the underground. For the Maya, who thrived here over 1,000 years ago, cenotes were both vital water sources and sacred entrances to Xibalba, the realm of the dead. Rituals took place at their edges, and offerings were cast into their depths. Jade beads, pottery, incense burners, even human sacrifices. Diving into these caves is both breathtaking and perilous. Divers navigate tunnels barely wide enough for a single body, following guidelines through water so clear it seems invisible. Stalactites hang above submerged passages, while submerged stalagmites rise like pillars from the floor. In the beams of headlamps, carvings and artifacts emerge from the dark, preserved for centuries in the still, mineral-rich water. Skeletons rest on ledges, their placement deliberate, part of ceremonies now long forgotten. In 2018, a breakthrough came when the Great Maya Aquifer Project announced that two massive cave systems, Sac Actun and Dos Ojos, were not separate but connected. Together, they formed a single network stretching more than 215 miles, the largest underwater cave system known on Earth. This discovery reframed how archaeologists viewed both the landscape and Maya cosmology. Such vast interconnection suggested that entire regions of ritual activity, once thought isolated, were in fact part of a single sacred geography. Within these passages, archaeologists have found offerings dating back 10,000 years, predating the Maya themselves. Fossilized remains of extinct animals, including giant sloths and saber-toothed cats, rest alongside human bones. Later layers reveal Mayan ceremonial deposits, obsidian blades, incense burners shaped like gods, and altars positioned deep inside, where no natural light penetrates. The deliberate placement suggests that priests entered these caves with torches, descending into the watery dark to commune with forces they believed ruled life and death. The cenotes also hold evidence of collapse. At certain points, ceilings fell, trapping offerings and remains beneath rubble. Some divers report chambers where walls bear smoke stains, as if torches once burned here before the passages flooded. This raises questions about when the caves filled with water and how rituals adapted as entrances changed. Modern exploration faces challenges beyond archaeology. The cave systems are fragile, their walls prone to collapse, their passages stretching for miles with little oxygen. A diver's light may be the only point of reference in complete darkness. Yet teams continue to press deeper, mapping branches that extend farther than expected. Each survey uncovers new chambers, and with them, new mysteries. What intrigues researchers most is how these caves reflect Maya belief. In their mythology, Xibalba was not merely a place of the dead, but a realm of trials and transformation. To descend into cenotes was to enter the threshold between worlds. The artifacts found within ritual vessels, jade ornaments, human bones placed with care, suggest that these were not random deposits, but purposeful offerings meant to bridge the living with the divine. Today, cenotes remain both natural wonders and cultural landmarks. Many are visited by swimmers and divers, their blue water gleaming in sunlight. Yet beyond the tourist sites lies a hidden world, sealed in darkness, where archaeology and mythology converge. And as explorers trace new connections through this immense network, questions deepen. If two vast systems can unite into one, how many others might still remain linked beneath the Yucatan portals waiting to be revealed, and stories of the underworld not yet fully told? In Russia, engineers drilled the deepest hole ever made by humans, 7.6 miles into the Earth's crust. Temperatures reached 356 degrees Celsius, hotter than expected, forcing abandonment. The site is now sealed, its rusting cap welded shut. Yet recordings taken at the bottom, strange echoes that scientists struggled to explain, still circulate in whispers. The project began in 1970, deep in the Kola Peninsula near the Norwegian border. At the time, both the Soviet Union and the United States were racing to probe the limits of geology. America had already attempted Project Mohole, an effort to drill through the ocean floor into the mantle, but it failed in the 1960s. The Soviets pressed forward, choosing solid ground. Their aim was to study Earth's crust directly, drilling deeper than anyone had dared before. Using specialized rigs, engineers drilled for nearly 2 decades, pushing the borehole deeper and deeper. By 1989, the Kola Superdeep borehole reached 262 meters over 7.6 miles down. It remains the deepest artificial point on Earth, though still only 1/3 of the way through the crust in that region. What they discovered along the way challenged assumptions about geology. Scientists expected to find basalt layers beneath granite at certain depths, confirming theories about Earth's stratification. Instead, the rock remained granite far deeper than predicted. More surprising still, microscopic fossils of single-celled organisms were discovered 4 miles down, remnants preserved for billions of years. These fossils had been compressed in rock under immense heat and pressure, rewriting ideas about where life could survive in Earth's history. But the greatest obstacle was heat. At depths beyond 7 miles, temperatures soared to 180 degrees Celsius, 356 degrees Celsius, far higher than models had anticipated. The rock softened, behaving almost like plastic, making drilling nearly impossible. Equipment failed, and progress slowed to a crawl. By the early 1990s, funding evaporated. The Soviet Union collapsed, and the project was abandoned. Today, the site lies desolate. A rusting metal cap covers the borehole, welded shut. Weeds push through cracked concrete, and the surrounding buildings crumble in Arctic winds. To the casual visitor, it looks like nothing more than an industrial ruin. Yet beneath that cap lies a shaft that descends farther into Earth than anywhere else humans have touched. The borehole quickly attracted myths. Local tales claimed strange sounds had been recorded, deep underground echoes resembling human screams. Though scientists dismissed these as distortions of drilling noise or the shifting of superheated rock, the stories spread. In the 1990s, Western tabloids dubbed it the "well to hell," claiming Soviet engineers had heard tormented souls in the abyss. No credible evidence ever surfaced, but the rumor persists, amplified by grainy audio clips passed between enthusiasts. Even without legends, the borehole represents a boundary between human ambition and Earth's reality. At 7 miles down, pressure exceeds 400 times atmospheric levels. Instruments recorded water seeping through crystalline rock, trapped for millions of years. The idea of liquid existing at such depths startled researchers, hinting at reservoirs hidden far beneath our feet. Modern geologists still study the data from Kola, using it to refine models of the crust. Yet the borehole itself remains sealed, its future uncertain. The site is occasionally visited by researchers and curious travelers, but the cap remains locked, guarding a descent no one dares resume. The Kola super-deep borehole is not a gateway to the mantle, nor to mythic hells. It is a scar of human determination, a reminder of how far technology can reach and how swiftly nature pushes back. And still the whispers of strange recordings persist. In the silence of the Arctic, a welded cap hides Earth's deepest wound. What truly lies in those miles of rock may never be heard again. North of Durango lies a desert where radio signals vanish. Compasses spin, and wildlife behaves strangely. NASA once lost a test missile here, its wreckage falling precisely in the zone. Locals speak of lights in the sky and metallic fragments buried in the sands. But scientists measuring the area found anomalies. Even their instruments couldn't stabilize. The Zone of Silence, or La Zona del Silencio, sits in the Mapimi Desert, a remote stretch of northern Mexico spanning Chihuahua, Durango, and Coahuila. It earned its name in the 1960s when radio operators reported that transmissions failed within its boundaries. Shortwave radios went mute, television signals dissolved into static, and compasses spun unpredictably. The effect was localized. Outside the zone, equipment functioned normally, but inside, technology seemed to falter as if swallowed by invisible interference. Attention escalated in 1970 when a US Athena missile, launched from New Mexico, veered hundreds of miles off course. Instead of reaching its target, it crashed squarely within the zone. Recovery crews dispatched by NASA reported difficulties with communication equipment, fueling speculation that the desert itself had disrupted the missile's guidance systems. Though official explanations cited mechanical error, the coincidence cemented the zone's reputation as a place where the ordinary laws of physics bent. Local accounts add to the mystery. Residents tell of bright lights moving silently across the sky, sometimes hovering for minutes before vanishing. Ranchers describe patches of scorched earth with no signs of fire. Others claim metallic fragments lie buried in the sands, smooth, unidentifiable alloys unearthed after storms shift the dunes. Some visitors report feeling disoriented, as if distances stretch unnaturally, or as if time itself lags in the desert heat. Scientists have attempted to study the anomalies. Teams from Mexican universities and visiting researchers set up monitoring stations to record magnetic fields, atmospheric conditions, and radiation. The results were inconclusive. Instruments showed fluctuations in magnetism stronger than expected for the region, but the data often refused to stabilize. Geologists pointed to iron-rich deposits and meteorite fragments scattered across the desert as possible causes. Others suggested the zone sits at the intersection of unusual subterranean structures, amplifying natural electromagnetic disturbances. Adding to the intrigue, the desert has long been a collector of cosmic debris. Meteorites are found here with unusual frequency, some composed of rare metals. Ancient fossils also litter the region, remnants of when the land was a seabed millions of years ago. The collision of cosmic and terrestrial history makes the zone a layered archive. Sky stones above, ocean life below, all hidden beneath shifting sand. For locals, the zone is both feared and revered. Folklore speaks of strangers appearing in the desert, tall figures dressed in odd clothing, asking only for water before vanishing. Some dismiss these as stories born from isolation, but they endure across generations. Travelers who camp in the zone describe nights of silence so profound that even the wind seems absent, broken only by the crackle of static in radios that should be quiet. Authorities restrict access, officially for conservation. The Mapimi Biosphere Reserve protects rare flora and fauna, including desert tortoises and golden eagles. Yet visitors note checkpoints and warnings beyond what most reserves enforce. Guided tours to the fringes are permitted, but the central zone remains largely closed. Its mysteries studied only under supervision. Satellite images show little unusual. Barren desert, salt flats, and rocky ridges. But to those who enter, the strangeness is felt rather than seen. Compasses twitching, radios hissing, an unsettling sense that the air itself resists intrusion. The zone of silence is not easily explained. Magnetic fields, meteorites, or myth each offers part of the story, none complete. And if NASA's missile truly fell here by chance, then chance itself seems drawn to this desert, where silence speaks louder than sound. In 1942, British scientists tested biological weapons on Grunard Island, releasing anthrax spores into its soil. The island was quarantined for nearly 50 years. Even after decontamination, locals remain wary. In 1981, an anonymous group calling themselves the Dark Harvest Commandos claimed anthrax samples were still active, and when tested, some soil indeed showed traces. Grunard lies just off the coast of Scotland, a windswept isle less than 2 miles long. During World War II, with fears of a German invasion running high, Britain's military searched for new forms of deterrence. At Porton Down, the country's chemical and biological research facility, scientists studied the potential of anthrax as a weapon. Grunard was chosen as a test site because it was uninhabited, isolated, and small enough to be controlled. The tests were blunt and deadly. Flocks of sheep were placed on the island, then exposed to anthrax spores released from bombs. Within days, the animals died. Their carcasses blackened and bloated, stark evidence of the weapon's effectiveness. The spores clung to the soil, resilient against wind, rain, and time. When scientists realized how persistent anthrax was, the island was abandoned to contamination. Signs warned of danger, and local boats were told to steer clear. For decades, Grunard Island remained under quarantine. Generations of Scots grew up knowing it only as the Anthrax Island, a forbidden place where nothing safe could live. From the mainland, its rocky outline was visible, yet untouchable, a reminder of the war's hidden legacies. Fishermen avoided its waters, and rumors spread of illness, striking those who came too close. By the 1970s, pressure mounted to clean the island. Scientists proposed methods of decontamination, but anthrax spores can survive for decades, even centuries. It was not until 1986 that serious efforts began. Tons of formaldehyde mixed with seawater were sprayed across the island, saturating the soil. Contaminated topsoil was removed and buried, and the land was declared safe in 1990. Sheep were reintroduced, and when they survived unharmed, officials pronounced the quarantine lifted, yet trust proved harder to restore. Locals remained suspicious, especially after the events of 1981. That year, the mysterious Dark Harvest Commandos announced they had collected contaminated soil from Gruinard and deposited it outside government facilities as proof that anthrax still lingered. Tests confirmed traces in their samples, though the exact risk remains debated. The stunt renewed fears that the island was not fully neutralized and that spores might still rest in hidden corners of its soil. Today, Gruinard is technically safe. Its ownership returned to private hands. Grass and heather cover the ground, and seabirds nest along its cliffs. But few set foot on its shores. The stigma of its past remains, shaping how nearby communities view it. Some fishermen still avoid the surrounding waters, and many locals refuse to visit, convinced the contamination was never fully erased. Scientists, too, acknowledge the uncertainty. While formaldehyde treatment neutralized much of the surface, anthrax spores are notoriously durable. In theory, some may persist deeper underground, dormant but not destroyed. If soil were disturbed by erosion or construction, traces could resurface. Officials downplay the risk, but the shadow lingers. From the mainland, Gruinard looks like any other Hebridean island, windswept and quiet, yet its history sets it apart. A place deliberately poisoned in wartime, left to rot for half a century, then reclaimed under uneasy terms. The anthrax experiment demonstrated the devastating potential of biological weapons, but also the uncontrollable danger they pose once released. Gruinard Island remains a silent monument to that lesson, and though the quarantine signs are gone, the memory endures, a reminder that some scars lie not on the surface, but buried deep in the soil, waiting. In Somalia during the 1990s, UN inspectors reported abandoned chemical facilities outside Mogadishu. Tunnels extended beneath the sand, filled with drums of unknown substances. When civil war intensified, the sites were sealed and declared permanently off-limits. But satellite photos taken years later showed movement around the ruins. The early 1990s marked a time of collapse for Somalia. The fall of its central government left factories, ports, and military installations unguarded. Among them were industrial complexes on the outskirts of Mogadishu, some of which bore signs of chemical production. Reports from UN teams described corroded storage tanks, shattered laboratories, and underground tunnels stacked with barrels, their markings faded, their contents unknown. Without central oversight, these sites posed dangers not only to locals but potentially to the region at large. Chemical residue was detected in surrounding soil and water, though its exact nature was never publicly disclosed. Inspectors noted acrid odors seeping from cracks in sealed bunkers, as well as animals found dead near runoff channels. Samples taken at the time suggested industrial byproducts, but fears lingered that weapons precursors might also have been stored. With Somalia in chaos, international agencies urged that the sites be isolated and sealed. Local militias soon controlled access, and official monitoring became nearly impossible. Civil war made the danger worse. Fighting near Mogadishu scattered populations and left entire districts abandoned. Refugees recalled hearing explosions within the industrial zone, though whether from conflict or unstable chemicals could not be determined. By the mid-1990s, the facilities had become ghost factories, sealed behind dunes and razor wire, fading from public view. But the story did not end there. In the 2000s, satellite imagery of the area revealed something unsettling. Tracks appeared in the sand, leading toward the ruins, suggesting vehicles had returned. Roofs that once caved in appeared repaired. Analysts noted changes in the layout of debris piles, as if the ground had been disturbed. Official explanations were scarce, and the uncertainty sparked concern. Some suggested looters stripped the site for scrap metal, a common practice in conflict zones. Others feared that chemical stockpiles left inside might have been retrieved, sold, or repurposed. Without direct access, the truth could not be confirmed. Requests for renewed inspections were raised at the UN, but security conditions around Mogadishu remained too unstable to allow foreign teams to re-enter. Local accounts add fragments to the mystery. Fishermen in coastal villages spoke of unusual slicks appearing offshore, with fish dying in patches along the waterline. Farmers reported strange burns on crops near areas where underground tunnels were rumored to extend. While anecdotal, such testimonies echoed earlier concerns that contamination might have spread beyond the sealed fences. Today, the Mogadishu chemical plant sites remain closed, their exact coordinates withheld from public maps. Authorities cite both safety and security reasons, warning civilians to avoid the areas. From the air, the ruins blend into desert scrub, broken only by the occasional shadow of collapsed towers and rusting pipelines. Yet analysts continue to track subtle changes, new pathways cut into the sand, shifts in debris fields, and the occasional presence of vehicles. For a city rebuilding after decades of war, the ruins are a reminder of hidden dangers. They are too dangerous to reclaim, yet too uncertain to ignore. The sealed tunnels may still contain chemicals long past stability, capable of leaking into soil and groundwater. Or perhaps they are empty, stripped long ago, their danger more memory than fact. Either way, the Mogadishu chemical plants remain a forbidden zone, quiet, avoided, and unsettled. And as long as satellites continue to show faint movement among their ruins, the question endures: what still stirs beneath the sand, inside facilities the world once promised would stay sealed forever? In 2017, scans using cosmic rays revealed a void above the Grand Gallery of the Great Pyramid at Giza, a space 100 feet long, untouched for 400–500 years. Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities declared it off-limits, citing preservation. But infrared scans detected unusual heat signatures inside, hinting at something concealed. The Great Pyramid of Khufu is the oldest of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, and the only one still standing. Built around 2560 BCE, it rises nearly 480 feet, constructed from more than 2 million limestone and granite blocks. For centuries, explorers believed its secrets were confined to 3 known chambers: the King's Chamber, the Queen's Chamber, and the subterranean chamber cut into bedrock. But modern technology continues to reveal that the pyramid may hold more than meets the eye. In 2015, the Scan Pyramids project began using advanced imaging techniques, including muon radiography, a method that tracks cosmic rays penetrating stone to detect hidden cavities. The results startled researchers. Above the Grand Gallery, which stretches upward like a stone cathedral, they detected a massive void. Roughly 100 feet long and shaped like a corridor or chamber, it matched no known construction passage. For the first time in millennia, evidence suggested that something new lay hidden inside the pyramid. Egyptian authorities quickly announced that no excavation would take place. The void, while real, would remain sealed to preserve the integrity of the structure. Yet curiosity only deepened when follow-up thermal scans detected unexplained heat patterns along certain blocks near the chamber's location, suggesting possible hidden passages or internal anomalies. The discovery reignited long-standing debates about the pyramid's purpose. Scholars traditionally describe it as a tomb for Pharaoh Khufu, yet no mummies or grave goods have ever been found inside. The hidden chamber raised questions. Was it a relieving space to reduce weight on the Grand Gallery? A symbolic void with religious meaning? Or could it conceal artifacts, texts, or even a burial untouched for thousands of years? Legends have always surrounded the Great Pyramid. Medieval Arab chroniclers spoke of hidden vaults containing ancient knowledge maps of the stars, records of civilizations lost to flood or fire. Others claimed it held secret mechanical devices or even treasures of unimaginable value. While such stories blur fact and myth, the confirmation of an undiscovered space rekindled them in modern form. Researchers remain cautious. Entering the void would require drilling through ancient stone, risking damage to the pyramid. For now, robotic exploration remains a possibility, though even that stirs debate among preservationists. The pyramid has survived earthquakes, looting, and millennia of desert storms. Any intrusion could destabilize delicate structures, yet questions persist. Why is the chamber so large? And why was it concealed so thoroughly? Unlike small gaps left for architectural reasons, this void rivals the scale of known passageways. Its deliberate positioning above the Grand Gallery suggests intention rather than accident. The unusual heat signatures recorded nearby only add to the mystery, hinting at something within. From the desert outside, the pyramid appears timeless, its golden limestone long since weathered to pale stone. Tourists climb its base, gazing up at a monument older than most civilizations. Few realize that inside, just beyond reach, an untouched chamber stretches in silence, sealed since the time of Khufu. For now, the void remains invisible, a space mapped only by particles from the cosmos, seen only as shadows in data. But its existence changes the story of the pyramid, proving that even after centuries of study, it still guards secrets. And if one chamber has remained hidden for 500 years, then perhaps others do as well, waiting quietly within the stone, their contents known only to the builders and to time. Between Panama and Colombia lies 100 miles of swamp, mountains, and jungle known as the Darien Gap. No roads cross it. Armed groups patrol the region, venomous snakes lurk in the undergrowth, and rivers can swallow entire expeditions. Migrants who attempt the crossing speak of strange lights above the canopy at night, phenomena never officially explained. The Darien Gap is the only break in the Pan-American Highway, a road network stretching from Alaska to Argentina. Here, the road simply ends, blocked by terrain so treacherous it has defied decades of construction efforts. The jungle is dense, humidity near constant, and rain transforms trails into rivers of mud. Mountains rise abruptly, their slopes covered in thick vegetation, while lowlands dissolve into swamp where travelers sink waist-deep with every step. For centuries, the gap has been both barrier and refuge. Indigenous communities such as the Embera and Wunan live in scattered villages, navigating rivers by canoe and maintaining deep knowledge of the land. For them, the jungle is both home and protector. But for outsiders, it has long been a place of peril. Expeditions attempting to force roads through the gap in the mid-20th century faltered against disease, flooding, and sheer logistics. Engineers concluded that carving a permanent passage would cost billions and devastate one of the most biodiverse ecosystems on Earth. That biodiversity hides danger. The gap teems with jaguars, venomous snakes, and insects carrying malaria or dengue fever. Rivers surge without warning after distant rains, sweeping away bridges or travelers caught mid-crossing. Thick canopy blocks sunlight, leaving paths in perpetual shadow. Even seasoned explorers describe the landscape as overwhelming, a place where time slows, and every mile feels longer than it should. Today, the Darien Gap is crossed most often not by scientists or adventurers but by migrants. Tens of thousands attempt the journey each year, fleeing poverty or violence, hoping to reach North America. For them, the gap is an unavoidable obstacle. Stories from these crossings describe exhaustion, illness, and encounters with armed groups who control stretches of the forest. Criminal networks and guerrilla factions use the region as a corridor for smuggling, adding human threats to the natural hazards. Amid these dangers, reports of unexplained phenomena surface. Migrants speak of lights gliding above the canopy, silent and unblinking, vanishing when approached. Some describe orbs appearing in the tree line, illuminating campsites before fading into the mist. Others recall hearing low mechanical hums at night, though no aircraft are visible overhead. With official presence scarce, such accounts are left unverified, but they persist across years and groups of witnesses. Scientists who have studied the gap focus on its geology and ecology. The region is a biological bridge between North and South America, home to species found nowhere else. Botanists discover new plants in its valleys, while zoologists track rare amphibians and birds. The untouched nature of the gap makes it a living laboratory, but also means that much of it remains unmapped. Satellite images show only an unbroken expanse of green, concealing rivers, caves, and mountains beneath. Governments treat the gap with caution. Panama and Colombia maintain limited patrols but avoid large-scale projects. Environmental concerns combine with political and security risks to keep the region largely untouched. For now, it remains one of the last true wildernesses on Earth, where nature holds dominion and human presence is fleeting. At night, silence settles thickly over the canopy. The forest hums with insects, the rivers surge unseen, and fires of migrant camps flicker dimly in the undergrowth. Overhead, the unexplained lights sometimes appear reported but never studied, part of the long list of mysteries the gap conceals. The Darien Gap endures as both obstacle and enigma. It halts highways, swallows expeditions, and guards its secrets beneath green shadows. And perhaps, in those lights that drift above the trees, it still signals that some parts of the Earth were never meant to be crossed. The remote Pitcairn Islands, limestone caves cut into cliffs hide carvings left by Polynesian settlers centuries ago. The caves are unstable, their ceilings collapsing without warning. Authorities forbid entry, but drone surveys captured glimpses of deeper passages that appear man-made. The Pitcairn Islands lie in the South Pacific, among the most isolated inhabited places on Earth. The main island, Pitcairn itself, is home to fewer than 50 residents, descendants of the infamous mutineers of HMS Bounty and their Polynesian companions. Rugged cliffs ring the island, lashed by waves that make landing treacherous. Yet hidden within those cliffs are caves that reach back far beyond European arrival, carrying traces of the island's first settlers. Polynesians likely reached Pitcairn around the 11th century, navigating vast distances with only stars and currents to guide them. Carvings in the island's caves depict faces, birds, and geometric patterns similar to those found elsewhere in Polynesia. These markings, etched into limestone walls, suggest the caves held ritual or ceremonial importance. Some may have served as shelters, others as places of burial or reverence. To the current islanders, they are remnants of a vanished past, one that remains only in stone. But the caves themselves are dangerous. Centuries of erosion have weakened their ceilings, leaving chambers prone to collapse. Authorities have long prohibited entry, citing risks to both visitors and the fragile carvings within. Even so, the lure of the caves persists. Explorers have attempted to approach by rope from the cliffs or by sea, but treacherous swells and crumbling rock make access perilous. Modern technology has offered new glimpses. Drone surveys flown into larger openings have recorded passages that extend deeper than expected, twisting into darkness. In some places, the walls appear unnaturally smooth, as if shaped by tools rather than water. Narrow corridors bend at sharp angles, inconsistent with natural erosion. These features raise questions. Did early settlers expand the caves, or could they conceal chambers never meant to be discovered? Local oral traditions speak only faintly of the caves. Island elders recall stories passed down of taboo places where spirits lingered. Some caves were said to be entrances to the underworld, others the resting places of chiefs. Whether these accounts reference the same limestone caverns or older, forgotten passages is uncertain. What is clear is that the caves have long carried an air of caution and mystery. Archaeologists who studied accessible sites on Pitcairn confirmed the Polynesian presence but found little evidence of sustained settlement. The island today shows no trace of the large communities that must have once existed to leave such carvings. Why the Polynesians vanished remains unanswered. Some suggest resource depletion, others conflict, or migration to more fertile islands. The sealed caves may hold clues, preserving artifacts or remains untouched for centuries. Yet excavation is deemed too dangerous. From above, the cliffs appear scarred with narrow mouths, dark openings watching the sea. Waves crash below, and seabirds nest along the ledges. It is a place where land and ocean meet violently, and where time seems to hold its breath. The islanders live their lives on the plateau above, rarely speaking of what lies beneath their feet. The mystery deepens with the drone footage. Glimpses of passages leading away into blackness, their depth unknown. Without stable entry, no one can confirm how far they extend or what might wait inside. Some researchers speculate that the caves connect to underground water channels, hollowing out vast areas beneath the island. Others wonder if they were deliberately constructed, hiding chambers of cultural or spiritual significance. For now, the Pitcairn Caves remain closed, their secrets locked behind unstable stone. They stand as silent witnesses to the island's first people, reminders of a civilization that came, flourished, and vanished, leaving only whispers carved in limestone. And somewhere beyond the reach of drones, the deeper passages wait, whether natural or man-made, whether empty or filled with echoes of the past. They remain hidden, sealed by danger and silence. During World War II, the Oak Ridge facility in Tennessee enriched uranium for the Manhattan Project. Beneath its laboratories lie vaults still sealed, holding materials and documents deemed too dangerous to release. Radiation monitors around the site occasionally spike. Officials dismiss them as technical errors. Locals aren't convinced. Oak Ridge was born in secrecy. In 1942, as the United States raced to develop the atomic bomb, more than 0 acres of Tennessee farmland were seized by the government. Within months, entire towns were cleared, and construction began on what would become a city devoted to nuclear science. Known as the Secret City, Oak Ridge housed laboratories, enrichment plants, and tens of thousands of workers sworn to silence. Few knew the scale of what they were building, but the uranium enriched there would fuel the bomb dropped on Hiroshima in 1945. Beneath the sprawling complex, reinforced vaults were constructed. These chambers held not only uranium and plutonium samples, but also byproducts of experiments, some unstable, some poorly understood. Classified documents, prototypes, and sealed containers were stored in underground chambers designed to outlast the war. After 1945, the Manhattan Project ended, but the vaults remained, their contents locked away behind steel doors and concrete walls. For decades, Oak Ridge continued as a hub of nuclear research. The National Laboratory there pioneered advances in medicine, energy, and materials science. Yet its shadow history persisted. Declassified records confirm that waste was sometimes buried hastily, stored in drums that corroded over time. Workers later admitted to exposure incidents never fully reported. The vaults, always sealed, became symbols of what remained hidden. Radiation monitoring stations dot the surrounding region. Officially, these are precautionary, ensuring no leakage threatens public health. Yet residents of nearby towns have noticed occasional spikes. Readings surge above background levels, then return to normal, with explanations attributing them to instrument error or weather conditions. For locals who grew up hearing whispers of what lies beneath Oak Ridge, these reassurances ring hollow. Stories persist of vaults that hold more than material. Rumors circulate of experimental reactors dismantled in secrecy, stored in parts underground. Others speak of biological experiments conducted during the Cold War, sealed away when ethics shifted. Whether exaggerated or not, the uncertainty sustains suspicion. Attempts to probe deeper often meet silence. Journalists requesting access are referred to official statements that the vaults pose no threat. Scholars studying the Manhattan Project note that vast amounts of documentation remain classified, withheld even after decades. What precisely was locked away beneath Oak Ridge in the 1940s has never been fully disclosed. Environmental surveys show the land around Oak Ridge carries traces of radioactive isotopes, though at levels considered safe. Still, the soil tells of a history few dispute. That contamination once spread further than acknowledged. Cleanup projects began in the late 20th century, removing thousands of barrels of waste. Yet the vaults themselves were untouched. Their contents neither relocated nor revealed. From the hills around the facility, Oak Ridge appears like any other industrial complex: fenced perimeters, guarded gates, laboratories buzzing with modern research. But those who live nearby know its legacy runs deeper. At night, the air hums faintly with power lines, and the lights of security towers glow across the ridges. Beneath, the sealed vaults sit in silence, their doors unopened for more than 70 years. Whether they hold unstable materials, forgotten experiments, or simply classified archives, no one outside the government can say. What is certain is that the vaults remain closed, their secrets locked away in darkness. And when the monitors spike, if only for a moment, the question rises again. Are the vaults truly silent, or are they still speaking through the ground? Beneath 2 miles of Antarctic ice lies Lake Vostok, sealed for at least 15 million years. When Russian scientists drilled into it in 2012, they recovered samples of water never touched by the atmosphere. Initial reports hinted at unknown microbial life, but the lab that analyzed the samples abruptly retracted its findings, citing contamination. Lake Vostok is one of the largest subglacial lakes in the world, stretching more than 150 miles in length and covering an area comparable to Lake Ontario. It was first detected in the 1990s, when satellite radar and seismic surveys revealed a vast body of liquid water trapped beneath the East Antarctic ice sheet. The discovery stunned researchers. Despite the crushing pressure and lack of sunlight, the lake had remained liquid, warmed by geothermal heat rising from the Earth's crust and sealed by ice that acted as insulation. For decades, Vostok was treated as a natural time capsule. Isolated for millions of years, its ecosystem could represent an untouched biosphere, evolving separately from the rest of Earth. Some even suggested it might offer a model for alien environments, such as the icy moons of Europa or Enceladus, where oceans may also lie hidden beneath thick ice shells. In the 1990s, Russian scientists began efforts to drill through the ice above the lake. The project moved slowly, balancing scientific ambition with fears of contamination. Drilling fluid used to keep the borehole open risked seeping into the lake and altering its pristine conditions. After years of planning, the team finally breached the lake in February 2012, drawing up samples of water frozen into cores. At first, the results were electrifying. Reports circulated that DNA traces pointed to previously unknown forms of microbial life, organisms adapted to extreme pressure and total darkness. Headlines suggested that Lake Vostok had confirmed the existence of life in one of Earth's most hostile environments. But the excitement was short-lived. Within months, the laboratory analyzing the samples issued a retraction, stating that the microbes detected were likely contaminants introduced by the drilling process itself. The announcement dampened speculation, but doubts lingered. Subsequent analyses continued to produce tantalizing but inconclusive results. Some studies found genetic sequences that matched no known organisms, though critics again pointed to contamination. Others identified extremophiles bacteria similar to those found in hydrothermal vents or deep caves, suggesting that, at the very least, microbes could survive in such an environment. The evidence never fully settled the question, leaving Lake Vostok poised between breakthrough and mystery. The secrecy surrounding the project only deepened intrigue. Russia released limited data, and much of the analysis remained unpublished. Independent teams were unable to verify the findings, fueling speculation of discoveries withheld from public view. Were the samples too contaminated to draw conclusions, or did they contain something extraordinary, something not ready to be announced? Meanwhile, the lake itself remained sealed once more. After the initial penetration, the borehole froze over, locking the water beneath again. Plans for new drilling with cleaner technology have been discussed, but logistical and financial challenges keep progress slow. For now, Lake Vostok continues to lie untouched, its waters hidden under 2 miles of ice. From the surface, Vostok Station sits as one of the coldest places on Earth. Winds howl across the plateau, temperatures plunge below 80°F, and the sun disappears for months at a time. Beneath this desolation rests a world that has not seen the sky for millions of years. Whether it holds nothing more than sterile water or an ecosystem unlike any on Earth, Lake Vostok remains one of the planet's last sealed mysteries, and until its secrets are revealed, the silence beneath the Antarctic ice will continue to whisper of possibilities that science has yet to confirm. In Western Australia, the town of Wittenoom mined blue asbestos for decades. The fibers poisoned thousands. The town has since been erased from official maps, its access roads removed. Yet satellite imagery shows occasional tire tracks leading toward the ruins. Authorities warn, even breathing there for a few hours can scar lungs forever. Wittenoom was established in the 1940s as a mining settlement in the Pilbara region, a vast and arid landscape of iron-rich hills and dry riverbeds. Its lifeblood was chrysolite, commonly called blue asbestos, one of the most hazardous minerals ever extracted. Mined from the surrounding gorge, the fibers were woven into insulation, brake linings, and building materials. At its peak, the town housed more than 0 residents, and asbestos dust coated every surface: homes, schools, shops, even playgrounds. At the time, awareness of asbestos dangers was limited, though evidence was already emerging. Workers inhaled the sharp, needle-like fibers daily, unaware of the damage being etched into their lungs. Families living nearby played in waste piles, children sledding down heaps of asbestos tailings as though they were sand dunes. It would take decades for the full consequences to surface. By the 1960s, studies confirmed the devastating health effects. Asbestosis, lung cancer, and mesothelioma appeared among miners and residents at alarming rates. Chrysolite proved especially lethal, its fibers smaller and more easily lodged in lung tissue than other types of asbestos. Despite growing warnings, mining continued until 1966, when operations ceased and Wittenoom began its slow decline. But the damage was already irreversible. Thousands of workers and townspeople developed fatal illnesses, often decades after exposure. Families who had long since left Wittenoom found themselves haunted by its dust, illnesses emerging years later. The tragedy became one of Australia's worst public health disasters. The government responded by phasing out the town entirely. Services were withdrawn, properties were purchased and demolished, and Wittenoom was officially degazetted, removed from maps and road signs. Access roads were closed, leaving the town as a ghost settlement in the desert. Today, only a handful of stubborn residents remain, refusing to leave despite repeated warnings. Their homes stand among ruins, surrounded by invisible danger. Authorities caution that asbestos fibers still saturate the soil and air. Disturbing the ground can release clouds of microscopic needles, which remain deadly when inhaled. Safety assessments warn that even a few hours of exposure can cause long-term harm. The site is classified as one of the most contaminated places in the Southern Hemisphere. Yet despite the risks, traces of human presence continue to appear. Satellite imagery has revealed tire tracks leading toward the ruins, suggesting visitors, perhaps curious travelers, perhaps scavengers, still venture into the forbidden zone. The eerie persistence of activity in a place erased from maps only deepens its mystery. Wittenoom today exists in two realities: officially gone, yet physically still there. Its gorge remains stunningly beautiful, carved red cliffs framing dry riverbeds. From a distance, the land looks untouched, the kind of wilderness Australia is known for. But beneath that beauty lies a legacy of poison, fibers that will linger in the earth and air for centuries. For those who grew up there, memories mix with grief. Photographs show smiling families outside houses now demolished, children at schools where classrooms filled with asbestos dust. Survivors speak of friends and relatives lost, of lungs scarred by a mineral once seen as valuable. The story of Wittenoom is a reminder of how quickly prosperity can turn to ruin, and how some scars cannot be erased, only hidden. The government may have wiped the town from its records, but its dust still lingers, invisible and deadly. And as long as tracks appear in the desert, leading back toward its empty streets, Wittenoom will remain a ghost town not just of buildings, but of the lungs and lives it destroyed. The deepest point on Earth, nearly 0 feet down, is the Mariana Trench. Its pressure is immense, its cold absolute. Only a handful of crewed missions have reached the bottom. Microphones lowered into the trench recorded metallic sounds, rhythmic and mechanical. Oceanographers called them the Western Pacific Biotwang. But no vessel was anywhere nearby. The trench lies east of the Philippines, stretching over 500 miles across the seafloor. At its deepest point, the Challenger Deep, pressure exceeds 0 times that at sea level, enough to crush steel hulls if not specially reinforced. Temperatures hover near freezing, and sunlight never reaches its depths. For centuries, it remained unknown, a black scar on the ocean floor. Only in the 20th century did sonar mapping and submersibles begin to chart its contours. In 1960, the US Navy bathyscaphe Trieste, carrying Jacques Piccard and Don Walsh, became the first crewed vessel to reach the Challenger Deep. They described a desolate landscape, silty plains under perpetual darkness. Then, for decades, no one returned. The crushing depths and cost of exploration kept the trench largely untouched. New technology revived interest. In 2012, filmmaker James Cameron piloted a one-man submersible nearly 7 miles down, spending hours on the seafloor. He reported strange geological formations and evidence of microbial mats clinging to rock. In 2019, American explorer Victor Vescovo descended even deeper, confirming Challenger Deep's status as the lowest point on Earth. Alongside remarkable footage, his team collected samples showing life thriving in forms adapted to extreme pressure. Amphipods, sea cucumbers, and microbial colonies feeding on chemicals rather than sunlight. Yet among these triumphs of exploration, mysteries linger. In 2016, scientists using hydrophones detected an unusual sound within the trench. The noise lasted for seconds, rising in frequency like the sweep of a digital tone, then fading into silence. Unlike whale calls, it repeated at intervals, its rhythm oddly mechanical. Researchers dubbed it the Western Pacific Biotwang. Though speculation suggested baleen whales might be responsible, the sound carried frequencies never before recorded in known species. And crucially, the hydrophones picked up no vessels nearby, only the empty vastness of the trench. Other anomalies add to the intrigue. Expeditions have recovered plastic debris from the trench floor bags, wrappers, and microplastics, proving that even Earth's most remote depths are not beyond human reach. Alongside this contamination, traces of industrial chemicals such as PCBs were detected in amphipod tissue. Pollutants carried from the surface into a place thought isolated for eternity. The juxtaposition is eerie. Life adapted to crushing darkness, coexisting with materials that should never have been there. The trench also conceals geologic power. It is part of the Pacific Ring of Fire, where tectonic plates collide. Here, the Pacific Plate slides beneath the Philippine Sea Plate, plunging into the mantle. Earthquakes shudder through the region, and scientists believe some of the planet's deepest tremors originate here. Hydrophones have recorded rumbles unlike those of typical quakes. Low-frequency pulses that roll through the abyss like distant thunder. Despite these recordings, most of the trench remains unexplored. Less than 5% has been mapped in detail. Its depths may hide vents, spewing superheated fluids, entire ecosystems feeding on chemical reactions, or species unknown to science. For every expedition that reveals fragments of its story, vast stretches remain in silence. On the surface above, the Pacific Ocean stretches calm and endless. Few who sail it realize that nearly 7 miles below, a world of darkness and crushing weight extends beyond human comprehension. In that silence, microphones catch echoes that defy easy explanation, mechanical rhythms, metallic tones, sounds that vanish as quickly as they emerge. The Mariana Trench is the deepest wound in the earth, a place of both science and speculation. Its silence is broken only by voices no one can identify, and somewhere in its black depths, the ocean may still be speaking in a language we have yet to understand. In the southern Urals, Mount Yamantau is guarded by military perimeters. Satellite images show massive excavation, possibly tunnels or bunkers. Moscow has never explained its purpose. Locals report convoys moving through at night. And in 2003, seismic sensors picked up unexplained underground vibrations, far larger than mining should produce. Mount Yamantau rises to 380 feet in the Republic of Bashkortostan, a region long known for mineral wealth and strategic geography. During the Soviet era, its remote location made it an ideal site for hidden projects. By the 1990s, U.S. intelligence satellites began detecting vast construction around the mountain. Tunnels bored deep into the rock, spoil heaps growing, and new rail lines laid to carry materials inside. The scale suggested more than mining, yet Russian officials provided only vague explanations, citing food storage, mining operations, or archives. None fit the evidence. Reports indicated that entire towns sprang up nearby to house workers, guarded by military checkpoints. Locals spoke of convoys of trucks traveling at night, headlights blacked out, disappearing into the mountainside. High-security fencing ringed the area, and access roads were patrolled. For ordinary residents of Bashkortostan, Yamantau became a mountain they could see but never approach. Western analysts speculated about the purpose. Some believed it to be a vast nuclear bunker, part of Russia's continuity of government program, designed to house leaders and command systems in the event of war. Others suggested it was an underground weapons plant, capable of producing and storing arms, shielded from surveillance. The scale of excavation visible from space supported either theory. In 2003, seismic sensors registered unusual vibrations beneath the southern Urals. The patterns resembled neither earthquakes nor conventional mining blasts. Instead, they suggested large, sustained underground activity. While the exact source was never confirmed, the timing coincided with renewed reports of convoys heading toward Yamantau. The event only deepened suspicions that the mountain hides more than Moscow admits. Those suspicions are fed by history. During the Cold War, both the United States and the Soviet Union built extensive underground complexes to survive nuclear conflict. The US constructed sites like Mount Weather in Virginia, while the Soviets tunneled into the Urals. Yamantau appears to be the largest of these projects, so large in fact that US defense officials in the 1990s described it as possibly the biggest military facility in the world. Yet despite decades of speculation, its purpose remains unknown. Russia has released no detailed information, and official statements remain deliberately inconsistent. Food storage, archives, and civilian industry are all cited. But none explain why such secrecy is needed, or why construction continues long after the Cold War's end. For residents of nearby villages, the mystery is tangible. They hear the rumble of convoys at night, see aircraft circling overhead, and note sections of forest fenced off without explanation. Some claim distant booms echo from within the mountain, muffled but distinct. Others describe new communications towers rising on its slopes, linking the site to military networks. Satellite images taken in recent years still show activity. Fresh excavation, expanded roads, and ventilation shafts that hint at vast underground chambers. Western intelligence agencies continue to monitor, but without access. Conclusions remain speculative. Is Yamantau a relic of Cold War paranoia, left unfinished but heavily guarded? Or is it an active command center, silently maintained beneath the rock? From a distance, Mount Yamantau looks like any other peak in the Urals, forested, remote, touched by snow in winter. But beneath its slopes, something vast lies hidden, shielded from sight, shielded even from earthquakes themselves. And until its doors are opened, Yamantau remains a hollow mountain, one whose silence conceals more than the earth itself should allow. The red forest, closest to the reactor, absorbed the highest levels of radiation in 1986. Trees glowed red and died, leaving a wasteland. Yet in recent years, wildlife has surged back: lynx, elk, even wolves. Radiation levels fluctuate without pattern, sometimes spiking in untouched clearings. Researchers suspect hidden hot particles shifting beneath the soil. When Reactor 4 of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant exploded on April 26, 1986, the blast sent radioactive material high into the atmosphere. Much of it fell on a pine forest just west of the plant. The trees, bombarded with radiation, turned a vivid reddish-brown before withering away, hence the name Red Forest. The area was considered so contaminated that even emergency crews avoided entering it. For decades, it stood as one of the most irradiated places on Earth. To stabilize the disaster site, workers bulldozed large swaths of the dead forest and buried the trees in trenches, covering them with soil. Yet the radiation remained. Cesium-137, strontium-90, and plutonium isotopes lodged deep into the Earth, where their half-lives stretch into decades or even centuries. Even today, dosimeters carried into the red forest spike alarmingly, sometimes reaching levels unsafe for prolonged exposure. And yet, against all expectations, life returned. By the 1990s, grasses crept back through the soil, followed by shrubs and saplings. With humans gone, animals moved in. Elk and deer browsed where pine skeletons once stood. Wolves claimed territory, their numbers growing higher than in surrounding reserves. Lynx, bison, wild boar, and even bears now roam through the exclusion zone. Studies suggest that without human disturbance, wildlife thrives even in radiation's shadow. Still, anomalies persist. Researchers tracking radiation across the forest report irregular spikes, even in areas far from burial trenches. Readings fluctuate wildly, suggesting the presence of hot particles, microscopic fragments of reactor fuel, or contaminated soil that can shift with wind, rain, or erosion. When uncovered, they emit concentrated radiation far beyond the general background level. In one instance, scientists recorded a 100-fold increase within a few feet, only for the spike to vanish days later as particles resettled. The forest itself bears scars of this instability. Certain clearings remain oddly barren, where vegetation refuses to grow despite decades passing. In other places, twisted saplings rise crookedly, their growth patterns distorted by invisible forces. Animals appear outwardly healthy, but genetic studies reveal subtle mutations in some species, white patches on birds' feathers, altered cataract rates in small mammals, changes that hint at unseen pressures. In 2020, wildfires swept through the exclusion zone, igniting concern worldwide. As flames consumed brush and grass, radiation monitors spiked again, recording particles lifted into the air. Though the fires were eventually contained, They served as reminders. The contamination is not gone, only hidden, ready to resurface when disturbed. For those who work in the zone, the Red Forest carries a reputation for unease. Guides, leading scientists and officials avoid lingering, moving quickly through its paths. Even dosimeters, when they crackle to life, add to the tension. Few places on Earth feel so still, yet so alive with invisible danger. And yet, there is something paradoxical about the Red Forest. It is at once a scar of catastrophe and a sanctuary of wilderness. Wolves stalk elk across landscapes where radiation lingers. Birds nest in the ruins of power lines. Life adapts, even in conditions thought uninhabitable. But beneath the soil, the story is far from finished. Hot particles remain, shifting with storms and burials unseen. Every spike on a monitor is a reminder that the forest's silence hides something unstable. The Red Forest stands as both symbol and warning, that nature can endure even the worst disasters, but also that some dangers never truly disappear. And as long as radiation shifts in its soil, the dead zone will remain a place where survival and silence walk together, watched by invisible eyes that never close. 2 miles beneath the Atlantic Ocean lies a cluster of hydrothermal vents, nicknamed the Snake Pit. Superheated water erupts from the sea floor, rich in toxic metals. In 1985, submersibles captured images of tube worms clustered around the vents, thriving where life shouldn't exist. But instruments also picked up anomalous magnetic readings nearby. The Mid-Atlantic Ridge is the largest mountain range on Earth, though almost no one has seen it. Stretching more than 10 miles, it runs down the center of the Atlantic Ocean, where tectonic plates slowly drift apart. Along this scar in the seafloor, molten rock wells upward, creating new crust. The Snake Pit is one of the many vent fields scattered along this ridge, but it is perhaps the most dramatic both for what it reveals and what it conceals. When scientists first piloted submersibles into the Snake Pit region, they expected a barren desert of rock. Instead, they found a cathedral of spires. Chimneys of blackened stone rose 30 feet high, their tips releasing plumes of water that looked like smoke. These black smokers are not smoke at all, but mineral-rich fluids heated to more than 700 degrees Fahrenheit. In an environment with pressure more than 300 times that of the surface, water remains liquid even at such temperatures, creating a world of extremes where nothing should survive. And yet, here life clings. Tube worms, some over 6 feet long, cluster at the bases of chimneys. They have no mouths, no stomachs, and no need for sunlight. Instead, they live in partnership with bacteria that transform vent chemicals, hydrogen sulfide, methane, and metals into energy. This process, chemosynthesis, is the foundation of entire ecosystems. Shrimp, with reflective patches on their backs, gather in swarms, navigating by the faint glow of vent fluids. Clams the size of dinner plates anchor themselves in mineral-encrusted sediment. What looks like desolation from a distance becomes, up close, a thriving oasis. To biologists, this was a revelation. Life does not require sunlight, as once assumed. It requires chemistry, warmth, and time. The Snake Pit proved that ecosystems could exist in conditions resembling those on other worlds, beneath the ice of Europa, on Enceladus's hidden ocean, or even in the subsurface of Mars. Each discovery at the Snake Pit echoes beyond Earth, reshaping ideas of where life might flourish in the universe. But alongside the wonder, anomalies emerged. The 1985 expedition aboard the French submersible Nautile reported strange fluctuations in magnetic sensors. Compasses drifted inexplicably, swinging away from their bearings. Instruments designed to measure Earth's magnetic field logged sharp shifts, localized to the vent field. Natural explanations were offered, perhaps dense iron deposits concentrated in the crust, or magnetite forming as minerals cooled. Yet the anomalies were stronger than models predicted. varying over short distances in rhythmic pulses. On later dives, some instruments recorded oscillations repeating in cycles. The patterns were oddly mechanical, as though generated by something moving with precision rather than geological randomness. Researchers published the data cautiously, careful not to speculate beyond what could be defended. Still, the irregularities became part of the Snake Pit's legend, an undersea site where the ordinary rules of geology seemed to bend. Even without the anomalies, the Snake Pit is a place of constant transformation. Chimneys grow at astonishing rates, sometimes a foot or more each year, as minerals precipitate from vent fluids. Old structures collapse under their own weight, replaced by new towers rising from the rubble. Whole landscapes change in months, shaped by unseen currents and tectonic tremors. Each expedition returns to a seafloor that looks both familiar and altered, like a city perpetually under construction. The conditions push machines to their limits. Submersibles groan under the pressure, their lights casting narrow cones into an abyss, where visibility fades almost instantly. Robotic arms extend to collect samples, but even these can jam as minerals crystallize mid-retrieval. Cameras fog, sensors short, and hulls creak ominously. Divers describe hearing faint noises through the metal clicks, rumbles, and low tones that sometimes seem to come from beyond the vents themselves. Scientists focus on what they can measure: the vent chemistry, the microbial genomes, the tectonic processes that drive the ridge. But even the hard data raises unsettling questions. In 2010, a new survey logged magnetic readings once again inconsistent with local geology. The anomalies appeared to drift, shifting locations between dives. If caused by mineral concentrations, they should remain stable. Instead, they seemed to migrate, as though something within the crust was moving, or something deeper was interacting with Earth's magnetic field in ways not yet understood. For geologists, the explanation may lie in molten rock chambers beneath the ridge, their convection influencing local magnetism. For physicists, the anomalies might represent interactions between metallic fluids and geomagnetic currents. But for those who hear only the mystery, the Snake Pit becomes a place where Earth itself seems alive, sending signals through stone and water. Above, the Atlantic surface remains calm, its waves rolling endlessly. Few who cross it realize that 2 miles below, towers of mineral and smoke rise into the dark, supporting life without sunlight and generating signals without clear cause. The Snake Pit is both a reminder of Earth's resilience and a question mark carved into its depths. It shows how life can thrive where it should not. It demonstrates forces that instruments struggle to capture, and it whispers, through anomalies and echoes, that the ocean still holds secrets we are not yet ready to name. For now, the vents continue to breathe. Black plumes rising, tube worms swaying, magnetic fields shifting in silence. The Snake Pit waits, its mysteries glowing faintly in the dark, glittering like the minerals on its chimneys glimpsed, measured, but never fully explained. Alexander died in Babylon in 323 BC, but his tomb has never been definitively located. Ancient accounts suggest it was moved multiple times, possibly to Alexandria. Archaeologists have uncovered hints of chambers beneath the modern city, sealed for centuries, but officials hesitate to excavate, fearing collapse or something more. Alexander the Great's death at the age of 32 shocked the ancient world. Having carved an empire stretching from Greece to India, he died without a clear successor. Legends say his generals fought not only over his legacy but also over his body. According to early accounts, his corpse was placed in a gold sarcophagus and transported out of Babylon. From there, the trail grows uncertain, branching into conflicting traditions. Some sources claim the body was taken first to Memphis in Egypt, where Alexander had been crowned as pharaoh. Others insist it was moved to Alexandria, the city he founded on the Mediterranean coast, meant to stand as the eternal capital of his empire. What is certain is that for centuries, rulers and pilgrims visited his tomb. Julius Caesar is said to have gazed upon his remains. Octavian, later Augustus, laid a wreath upon his body. Yet, by late antiquity, the tomb's exact location vanished from record, leaving one of history's greatest mysteries. Modern Alexandria complicates the search. The ancient city lies beneath centuries of construction, buried under layers of Roman, Byzantine, Islamic, and modern neighborhoods. Earthquakes, rising seas, and shifting ground have erased much of its Hellenistic quarter. Archaeologists working in the city often encounter ruins beneath foundations, fragments of marble halls, inscriptions, and sealed passageways. But excavating them is perilous. Alexandria is a living city. To tunnel beneath it risks collapse of streets, homes, and entire districts. In the 20th century, several discoveries reignited speculation. In 1907, a crypt containing a large sarcophagus was uncovered near the Nabi Daniel Mosque. Though eventually dismissed as unrelated, locals whispered that it might once have held Alexander. In later decades, ground-penetrating radar revealed voids beneath central Alexandria, vast cavities stretching hundreds of feet. Some scholars believe these could represent the remnants of the royal quarter, where ancient writers claimed the tomb once stood. Yet, exploration halted, blocked by engineering dangers and political caution. Hints emerge from ancient texts as well. Strabo, the Greek geographer, wrote of a shrine to Alexander in Alexandria's central district. Other writers described processions and rituals, suggesting that the tomb was not only a burial but a site of state cult. Coins minted in the centuries after his death depict Alexander in a mausoleum-like structure, reinforcing the idea that the tomb was known and visited for generations. The disappearance of such a prominent monument suggests either deliberate concealment or catastrophic destruction. What unsettles researchers are the stories that surface around sealed chambers. Workers who have ventured into the underground spaces beneath Alexandria sometimes describe strange conditions: air heavy and stagnant, thick with the scent of minerals and dust, untouched for millennia, moisture dripping from stone ceilings where no light penetrates, equipment failures, lamps flickering, cameras shutting off, recorded not just once but across separate expeditions. While these could be explained by poor conditions, they add to the aura of unease surrounding the search. The Egyptian Supreme Council of Antiquities has taken a cautious stance. Preservation outweighs discovery. Officials argue that the risk of destabilizing Alexandria outweighs the potential reward of unearthing the tomb. Still, rumors persist that more is known than has been revealed. Some claim artifacts already recovered from sealed chambers point toward a royal burial. Others suggest that traces of gold and precious stone, found deep in rubble, were too significant to belong to ordinary tombs. None of these claims have been verified publicly. The broader question of Alexander's final resting place remains open. Some historians argue the body may never have reached Alexandria at all, perhaps lost during the Wars of Succession or reburied secretly elsewhere. Others hold that the tomb still lies beneath the city, sealed away beneath streets and apartments, waiting for discovery. What cannot be doubted is the tomb's significance. To find Alexander's body would be one of the greatest archaeological discoveries of all time, rivaling Tutankhamun's tomb or the Dead Sea Scrolls. Yet such a discovery would also raise political questions. Would Greece claim him? Would Egypt? Would his resting place be opened to the world, or sealed again for protection? The stakes are as immense as the mystery itself. Today, Alexandria bustles above the possible tomb. Markets throng with vendors, traffic clogs, narrow streets, and high rises stretch across the shoreline. Beneath this modern city may lie chambers untouched for 2,000 years. Chambers where torches once flickered, where emperors once bowed, where perhaps a golden sarcophagus still rests in silence. Archaeologists know the voids are there. Instruments confirm them. Yet excavation is delayed, postponed again and again. Officially, this is for safety. But for those who follow the mystery, hesitation feels like something more, a reluctance to unseal whatever lies hidden. The tomb of Alexander the Great remains both legend and possibility. It exists in fragments, in ancient texts, in coins, in buried chambers glimpsed but never opened. Whether it was destroyed, looted, or still intact, no one can say. But the silence beneath Alexandria holds weight. It is the silence of centuries pressing upward from stone, and until that silence is broken, the conqueror of the known world remains unburied, in truth, waiting for history to find him again. In Teotihuacan, Mexico, archaeologists in 2011 discovered sealed tunnels beneath the pyramid of the Sunday robotic probes, revealed walls lined with pyrite, glittering in the dark like stars. But sections of the tunnel collapsed, and the rest was declared too dangerous to enter. Ground scans suggest chambers still untouched, and possibly objects not of stone. The Pyramid of the Sun is the largest structure in Teotihuacan, a city that once held over 100 people and stood as one of the most powerful centers in pre-Columbian America. Rising nearly 250 feet, it was built more than 500 years ago from millions of tons of volcanic rock and clay. Its exact builders remain uncertain, whether the Totonac, the Nahua, or another culture entirely, and so too does its original purpose. No inscriptions explain its meaning, no written record survives. The silence of Teotihuacan has left archaeologists to reconstruct its history from ruins alone. For decades, researchers suspected that something lay beneath the Pyramid of the Sunday. In 1971, a natural cave was discovered under the pyramid, running east to west. It appeared to have been altered by human hands, expanded into a four-lobed chamber resembling a cloverleaf. Some archaeologists interpreted this as a symbolic underworld, a place where rituals may have been performed. Others saw it as a sacred axis mundi, the center of the cosmos, linking the heavens above and the underworld below. But beyond that chamber, no one found deeper access. Then, in 2011, a new investigation began. Using ground-penetrating radar and electrical resistivity scans, researchers detected anomalies beneath the pyramid, long, linear features suggesting tunnels deliberately sealed by ancient builders. The decision was made to explore, but the risk was immense. The pyramid rests on fragile volcanic soil. Any disturbance could destabilize its massive weight. Excavation required precision and caution. To reduce danger, archaeologists deployed small robotic probes. Equipped with cameras and lights, the robots crawled through narrow passages cleared of debris. Their beams illuminated walls coated with crushed pyrite and hematite. In the glow, the minerals glittered like constellations, creating the effect of a night sky underground. This was no accident of geology. It was deliberate construction, an artificial cosmos built in darkness. Objects appeared along the tunnel floors, fragments of pottery, obsidian blades, and jade figurines carried from distant lands. Seashells from the Gulf of Mexico and Pacific Ocean were found. Their presence a reminder that Teotihuacan's influence stretched far beyond the Valley of Mexico. These were offerings, carefully placed to honor whatever lay deeper within. But before the probes could penetrate further, sections of the tunnel collapsed. The roof crumbled, filling corridors with rubble. Engineers assessed the damage and declared that continuing would be too dangerous. The pyramid could not be risked, nor the lives of those entering. Work stopped, leaving much of the tunnel unexplored. Yet the instruments left behind told another story. Ground scans revealed cavities beyond the collapse, large chamber-like voids, their shapes distinct from natural caves. Some chambers measured dozens of feet across. Their alignment suggested symmetry, as though part of a larger architectural design. But what they contained remained speculation. Theories multiplied. Some archaeologists believe the chambers may hold ritual deposits, stone statues, ceremonial masks, or thrones of volcanic rock, similar to those found beneath the nearby Temple of the Feathered Serpent. Others whisper of something more unusual, chambers meant to house metallic objects or substances not yet identified. The description of objects not of stone, drawn from the radar's reflections, continues to puzzle researchers. Could it be artifacts of precious metal, sealed away to preserve their sanctity? Or something stranger, materials whose properties differ from the usual obsidian and jade of Mesoamerican ritual? Teotihuacan's architecture itself complicates the mystery. The city was laid out on a precise grid, aligned with celestial movements. The Pyramid of the Sun lies along the Avenue of the Dead, a grand processional road that links it with the Pyramid of the Moon to the north and the Temple of the Feathered Serpent to the south. This alignment suggests a cosmological function, encoding the cycles of the sun, moon, and stars. If the pyramid was designed as a symbolic mountain, the tunnels beneath may represent the underworld, balancing heaven above with the darkness below. But why seal them? Sealing implies finality. Whatever the tunnels once held, they were meant to be hidden. Perhaps it was to protect sacred objects. Perhaps it was to close a ritual permanently. Or perhaps it was an act of fear, sealing away something not meant to resurface. Legends surrounding Teotihuacan only deepen the uncertainty. Centuries after the city was abandoned, the Aztecs discovered its ruins and gave it its current name, Teotihuacan, the place where gods were born. They believed it was the site where the sun and moon themselves emerged, where divine beings sacrificed to set the cosmos in motion. To them, the pyramids were not monuments to mortals but shrines of cosmic power. If the tunnels were part of this mythology, then the sealed chambers may have been regarded as too sacred or too dangerous for later hands to disturb. The collapse in 2011 has left exploration at a standstill. Engineers argue that any attempt to re-enter the tunnels risks destabilizing the pyramid's base. Archaeologists continue to push for non-invasive methods, more precise scanning, thermal imaging, and microgravity surveys. These techniques confirm anomalies but cannot answer the ultimate question of what lies inside. Meanwhile, reports persist from workers near the site. Some claim to hear hollow echoes when walking across sections of the pyramid's base, as if vast cavities lie just beneath. Others describe sudden fluctuations in equipment, compasses twitching or sensors failing without explanation. These accounts, while anecdotal, echo the larger pattern. Teotihuacan remains a place where mystery resists resolution. Above ground, millions visit the pyramid each year. They climb its steep stone steps, stand at its summit, and gaze across the Avenue of the Dead. Few realize that beneath their feet lies a world still sealed, a hidden cosmos, lined with glittering pyrite. Chambers untouched for over 1,000 years. For now, the Pyramid of the Sun keeps its silence. Its tunnels remain blocked, its chambers unentered. Whether they hold ritual offerings, metallic treasures, or something stranger still, only time and technology may tell. But one truth is clear: Teotihuacan was a city that built monuments not just to the heavens above but to the worlds below. And somewhere in that sealed darkness, behind collapsed stone and hidden walls, the Pyramid of the Sun may yet guard secrets meant only for the gods.